Hello, everybody. How are you tonight? Kala, April, Willow, Jasmine, good to see you tonight, as every night. Very happy to be here. Aaron's a little bit late doing errand things. Lord knows what it is with that guy. Tough to say. So, very good to see you all tonight. I would love to hear what you guys have been up to today. Anything fun that has happened in your life? Any neat dreams you had, or any cool meditations or anything? I've had a lot of cool stuff happen today. So, hi, Munchies with Mellow. It's good to see you. Hope you are doing very well tonight. Oh my gosh. Oh, so we can definitely talk about this tonight. Plant personifications. So there's definitely some interesting stuff in there. Some plants generally coming through more masculine or feminine. Some of them like to jump in between them. There's kind of some other archetypical overlays that we can give to some plants, or we can even talk about kind of like what our experiences are with learning from some of the plants, because it kind of seems like each plant kind of has its own lesson, and so there's really a lot of good stuff in there. I bet April is a great resource with this. She knows a lot of stuff about plants too. Probably other people in here too, because let's face it, on some level you are basically all a bunch of witches. So please don't hurt me. Please don't. We have absolutely no plan for tonight. So besides talking about what Willow wants to talk about, if you guys have any other topics that have been interesting you or anything like that, we'd be happy to talk about them. If anybody wants to come onto the show, we are always happy to have you onto the show. This is Expanded Understanding. I am Zach. Aaron is just setting up backstage now. We are a community ran both by basically this podcast and kind of the business that I run that is focused around bringing people together that are interested in spiritual things and consciousness and really just helping other people, learning to love yourself, all kinds of things that are aligned with, well, basically self-help or health and wellness in any way, trying to make the world a better place in that way and spread information and otherwise expand our minds. And if you're watching this in any kind of replay, we invite you to come and be a part of this community. We do all kinds of cool things like group meditations, and we have many wonderful people inside of the group, and we have a lot of basically community charity projects that we work on. And there's so many cool people inside of this community, and we would like you to be a part of it as well. So that door is open all the time. This show is very easy to call into if you're ever watching and maybe you've been watching these for a while and you've never really talked or anything. You can call in or anything. We invite you to come and see it live as well if you're just watching in replays. So some of the stuff that's going on right now, obviously we are building this podcast and all the social media that goes along with it. All of that is down in the comments below. We're definitely looking for any kind of help that we can have with creating micro content and taking show notes and all kinds of stuff like that. So if you want to contribute to the podcast in some way, we would love to have your help. And if you know anybody who's particularly good at that stuff, we would love to hear about them. Maybe we can find a way to work with them in the future. We also, in the future, have a lot of projects that have to do with basically food coming up. So we have I worked with a maestro down in Peru, a very good guy named Diodemero Minas, and he basically oversees his whole community. He's the shaman of the community. They oversee about 100 families, and we're going to be kind of running donations for trying to get money to help them out. Normally, his healing work at the various like retreat centers and stuff that are around there that works with, well, pretty much foreigners, right? Like other people flying down there. This pays for him to take care of all these families. Given the current situations with flights and travel restrictions and COVID worries and lockdowns and etc., This business is obviously taking a hit. So right now he is in a difficult situation and he is looking for some help with that. And I think we have a really good opportunity to, with really not very many resources, be able to help out a whole lot of people. Like I said, it's like 100 families, and these families, based off of the way that they basically eat, and they give them a lot of their food just from the jungle as well. They're about $4.50 a month to feed these entire families. So they are really good people, and they really are like a lot of. If we're going to talk about plant medicines, these people know plants better than anything, and they continue to kind of carry that knowledge through life. And there's a lot of reasons that it really is beneficial to try and help out these indigenous tribes and ensure that they're able to live their way of life so that functionally Western culture doesn't just roll over on top of them and they have no choice but to go and work normal jobs and no longer sustain their indigenous ways. There's a lot of beauty inside of their indigenous ways, and there's maybe even a lot more inside of there in certain cases than there is inside of other things. And realistically, without the help of some people, sometimes these people are not able to sustain themselves. Eventually, Western culture rolls in on them and it doesn't work out anymore. There's not a whole lot of places that really, this has already happened a lot of places. So, nevertheless, we're going to be kind of running some things to try and help them out. And I haven't really gotten too creative with the thing yet. Samantha, Charlotte, good to see you tonight.
I'd also like to say on that, just to add to what Zach was saying, and hi guys, that these are people Zach knows personally, or the tribe you met. You met him down there, right? You were at this tribe?
I have both myself and Jen, gently in chat, have personally hugged this individual on multiple occasions. We have done ayahuasca ceremonies with him. We have shared space with him. We've shared energy with him. This guy's an amazing guy. I still stay in contact with him on Facebook. He's not like a guy that goes around asking for charitable donations from everybody. I'm someone that he considers his brother. And so when he's in trouble, he reaches out to me to see if I can help. And realistically, because of the difference in lifestyle and location, really, usually it's not very difficult to help him. In those kinds of cases, $50 goes a really long way down there. So, nevertheless,
I just want to point out the fact and honor the fact too that they've met him personally. This is not. I mean, we're starting a nonprofit, if you will, not an organization, but we're actually going to create a Patreon or something to actually, so we can have an ongoing way that we, as we create income through the show in different ways, that we will regularly. That's something we will do monthly subscriptions to. It's something I'm going to do personally. I've already talked to Zach. It's a direct access to people who really need help. It's not just charity you heard or a media ad or something you felt good and you want to give to, and that's great. These are people Zach actually knows. So it's
the money goes from you to me to Dio DeMero to buy food.
Yeah,
every single dollar. Every single dollar.
Yeah,
and not a penny goes somewhere else. I don't need a penny off of this. I have no interest in having a penny off of this. I want to help these people. I love these people.
And if people don't know, a lot of nonprofits aren't like that, man. I think I don't want to misquote the numbers, but massive percentages, 50 up to the worst ones, like 90%.
We're gonna go farther than this too. Like this kind of stuff that's sitting behind me. Do you see how amazing this kind of stuff is? These are the only people in the world that generate stuff like this. We can get this stuff directly from the people that are making it and give the money directly to the people that are making it. No kind of third party, no kind of markup, anything like that. You want stuff like that, we can get this kind of stuff in the long run. I don't have a whole supply chain set up for it right now, but I can do this, okay? Everybody inside of Dio's village makes this shit. Like this stuff, it's everywhere. Dude. I can show you pictures on the screen right now. Literally every kid is wearing this shit. Like it is, everyone wears it, right? So these kinds of cool things and cool ceremonial stuff that's really actually authentic from the people who have designed stuff. Like we will have in the long run things set up where you can get these kinds of items and money will go to me and then it will immediately go to them.
So Patreon is coming, something a little more ongoing and regular that we'll be putting on the show. We'll have a link. We'll have links in the descriptions. Like probably as soon as we get that set up from here on out, that's something we're going to have regularly doing because that matters to what we're doing. We're not just on here every night to shoot the shit. Like we want to change the world. We really mean it, man. We're going to. And so these are ways to do it. You give, you plant seed because it's energy. And when you plant seed, you get a return on investment energetically or some other way, sometimes materially too. Great. When you invest money and you're trying to make more money, that's usually the goal you're going for in that form of energy. But in this, we're exchanging because we're helping humanity. We're helping people that Zach personally knows, Zach and Jen personally know There's no better way. Like I said, I'm personally on board. I'm sold on it, so that's why I'm selling it, if you will, because it's a beautiful idea. It's a great way to help other
To be
humans.
quite honest, if you speak Spanish, I'll put you in contact with the guy. He'd be more than happy to talk to you if you're gonna help him feed his people.
Man.
I'll put you directly in contact with him.
Dude,
Like,
I don't speak Spanish, man. All the stuff I know you're pitching it to like viewers. I would love to talk to him. Like, shit, I don't speak Spanish. You'll have to translate. We'll do it through a call.
Yeah, I mean, shit, I don't even speak good Spanish. Most of the time I talk to him in text, so I can use Google Translate. It works real good.
Oh, there you go. All right on.
It's good enough, man. I realized when we were down there, I had no idea what he was saying. He was basically like talking with movements of his hands, and somehow I got it. So it's good. It's definitely good enough.
Okay,
Jasmine, I read up here that you were celebrating your son's birthday, third birthday today. Happy birthday, Jasmine's son! Yeah.
Hey, Jasmine, if you want to tell us his name, we'll tell you what intuitively comes to mind and break down some of the symbols.
Oh, yeah. Three's a very interesting age. At least it was in my life. I like the number 3 alone. Samantha, hello.
Hello. Love you all.
Hello.
Love you, Sam. Hello.
Maya, hello. Bob, hello. I love how we have Nina, hello. I like how we kind of have this standardized community coming together. I really do love you guys. I really do appreciate you guys. This is exactly what I want from this channel. It's super cool to me. Can I show them pictures? Yep. Let me figure out how to bring up my Facebook on this here number machine here.
Go to the story.
So let's see.
Okay, so his name is Christopher.
Whose name is Christopher?
Jasmine's son. You got Zach's brain immediately went to 100% finding those pictures. That's why I didn't remember. I get it.
It is true. It is true. You're not wrong.
Hi, Charlotte.
You said pictures.
So Christopher, to me, that's Christ Peter. I mean, what comes to mind. That's an interesting dynamic. 3 is, in Hebrew, it's Gimel, which is to be lifted up or to raised up. And if you think about chakra cycles, patterning 7-year cycles with energetic fields, sometimes the emotionals that come in the same dynamic. So would that be solar plexus going up? So an actual expression of self-identification from just the yes, no, and I mean the toddler saying no and self-identifying and learning boundaries. I don't know, that's what's coming to mind right now. 3's also in fire.
That Chris name, everything that has to do with the idea of a cross or the Christ. So this is, very, very broad one. I feel like in many ways, like we're constantly talking about this name on this show, actually. We talk so much about crosses and everything like that, you know what I mean? Yeah. And that's really what that name is about to me.
Well, and the cross, the balanced cross, like the balanced cross of you, so everything's balanced and in harmony. The photon, the cross. The light emission, solar plexus, expressing into the world.
Phase conjugation, plasma physics.
With 3,
that's
or light expression.
With the idea of Christopher, anything that has to do with the cross is immediately associated to that in my mind.
Yeah. Cool. Yep. Thanks for sharing, Jasmine. That's fun. Hi, Aaron, Zach. Love you too. Love you too, TWL. Thanks. Love you too. So cool, Jasmine. Jasmine 3 is such a fun age. Oh yeah, you've got a couple kids all around that age. That'd be a good person to connect with. Let's see. Okay, so let me know if you find when you're done finding the pictures, so we can maybe go on that. Although I imagine now we'll probably do a whole playlist on every time, or at least accumulating the information based on the Patreon or based on this donation thing. So if people want to know about it, they can go to the clips where we talk extensively and show the pictures. Yeah, that'd be a great idea. So Willow said, Willow brought this up, and kudos to you, Willow, because like she must be used to like Twitch chat or something, because she brought up a question. She came up the other night and we just weren't able to get to it. I saw it, Willow. It didn't come up in the conversation. I think it was going into the slug thing maybe or something. I don't know what it was, but so she brought it up again here. She said the other night Aaron described marijuana as a 14-year-old girl. How would you personify other plants?
I had touched on this a little bit before you came on and saying that we were going to touch on it later, but I would love to hear how you personify the other plants.
All right.
So
okay, so yeah, Lady C, Lady Cannabis or marijuana, like a 14-year-old teenage girl, kind of, and I mean that in the playful, joyful, like the whole dynamic. It's very interesting engagement. And then I contrasted that with, in that story, asking her how she felt about George Carlin, because that's who Nate and I were listening to. And I was like, and, you know, smoking a spliff or whatever. And we were talking about this idea of tuning into the actual anthropomorphized aspect or whatever, archetype or overlay or something of a plant medicine, if we could familiarize it with something that I've experienced in life. And so I saw her being like really kind of offended by some of the things he was saying, and just thought he was old, and like, you know, because she's more with people like, I don't know, the time, she's always with the times, I feel like, in a sense. So all right, and then, but I was contrasting with how I thought San Pedro reacted to him, and I saw San Pedro as like a grandfather, which he's known as like the grandfather, I think, and they in a rocking chair, laughing his ass off, listening to George Carlin on the radio, just loving it, right? Just loving it. And then DMT, I used to call that, and I guess it still kind of fits, is like, what was it, Mr. A from the A, or Mr. from the A Team, or that thing? Remember that back in the day?
Mm-hmm.
What, is that what his name was? Mr. A, Mr. T?
I don't remember what his name was. I
know,
remember
that's
the A Team.
Man. The A Team,
Sort of.
yeah. Sort of. I know. I don't think I've ever seen it, just from like other shows. But like DMT, just like Mr. Motherfucking DMT, right? Like shit, DMT was no joke. It was its own thing, man, and it still is. I mean, even what happened the other night, didn't expect that, but kind of do, because it was DMT. Mm-hmm. You know. Yeah. So there's that. Mushrooms are I deeply love mushrooms. They're like really, really good friends. I don't know. I couldn't put an age or a type or male or female. I don't know. They're wonderful, and the interactions with them are very, very joyful and playful, but also obviously deeply, deeply deep and abstract and wonderful. So I don't know. I really like. That's why I would do that one. Molly's interesting. I haven't thought about that one before. That one still seems more, even though I feel like I know the resonance it's trying to mimic in me, or it is, but I feel like it gets there chemically instead of, I mean, internal body physiology is chemical anyway, but I mean, it feels like it's I don't know, like if it's supposed to be the purest form of something, something about it doesn't feel super pure in that dynamic to me. But I get the benefit of where it takes me cognitively or physiologically, and it allows me to operate from that place. But I don't know. Anyway, I'm sure I kind of go on about all of them if I tune into them, because that's how I kind of project my symbol sets on things.
What a projector. For the most part, I've found that any plant that has spines probably has a masculine component to it. Any plant that is mostly like leafy and stuff like that is generally pretty feminine. So the idea is basically angles versus curves. Curved plants are usually more feminine. Angled plants are usually more masculine. Things that have a combination of both. Like, for instance, okay, so like chacruna, right, which is where you get DMT from when you're making ayahuasca. It's like, it's a flowy leaf, but then it comes to a point, right? And mm-hmm. So it mostly has feminine aspects, but it definitely has the ability to be kind of, you know what I mean? And yeah. So like, I think really in a certain way, that's like really what kind of brings you like this good mother thing, right? Because the ayahuasca, it's like a vine. It's very much so like feminine, right? Yeah. And so like this vine being feminine within this chacruna, which is mostly feminine, but then it has this little point to it, is why like ayahuasca does get the job done. You know what I mean? But it is kind of like nurturing about that situation. Yeah, as far as DMT, I think you have an interesting situation, because there does kind of seem to be differences depending on what plant you get your DMT from.
Oh, so, totally. Yeah. You know, the more like, plant material that's in there or whatnot, or how it's processed definitely makes a difference.
Right. So
on that note, real quick, I would say that the pure white DMT is probably the most technological. And the more plant matter it's in there, is the softer the experiences seem to be, as a generality.
Yeah. Have you noticed at all with, like, have you experimented with marijuana flower versus distillates when you're like, as it pertains to meditation?
It's interesting because I do smoke often, and I really appreciate the not just cognitive places it brings me into, but it also creates like the opposite vortex into myself.
Uh-huh.
So I don't know. I feel like I hit those meditative places a lot during the day, but not just like an intentional meditation. I've actually, I don't think I've really done it to intentionally go into meditation.
I see. Because I've definitely noticed some difference with the like distillates don't engage me the same way in meditation, the same way flower does. And my take on it,
Interesting.
well, and I've noticed that this difference, like it kind of spans, right? Like if you have like something like a distillate, which is really, really just the alkaloid, or you have something that's like, more like your standard dab, like a BHO, or whatever. You can do that with a lot of
Yeah.
things, but something like that, which is still has a lot more of like terpenes and other bullshit
Right. Right.
inside of there, right? Then like that you can see kind of like three different differences. I mean,
Hmm.
so like I personally think like flower all the way if you're trying to
Yeah.
enhance like your meditation. And I really feel like in a certain way like that processing of it starts to kind of like take the plant spirit out of it in a certain way.
Totally.
Uh,
No, I totally agree. And it's funny you mentioned that because I only started doing the distillates recently, like right about the time we started doing the show. So now that you said that, I'm trying to filter back through, and I definitely prefer. I mean, I always have preferred flower, and I was rolling my own for a while. Like the last 6 months, I was rolling. I only smoke when I roll my own. I rolled a lot, and I got a, like Sacred Herb blends and some really really cool stuff that was, I've really enjoyed smoking and doing that. So yeah, that's interesting. It definitely it's this the on the physiological aspect, the distillate's a lot less harsh on my lungs. That's for sure. But yeah, but I still prefer the flower for sure.
yeah, Munchies is saying flower helps him get into deeper meditations at times, and Nina's saying I notice a difference the way flower and distillate hit during yoga.
Yeah,
And
makes
Joe
sense.
says need the total cannabinoid. And
Yeah,
I
I
would really
agree.
like, I mean, I think there's a difference there. I mean, like if we're talking about spirits inside of things, there would be other ways that we could identify them, right? And
Let's do it.
probably like molecules or whatever you wanted, atoms, right? We
Hmm.
could consider these like a different way that we could probably identify some kind of spirit if we really wanted to
Absolutely.
identify with
I think so
specifically
one
that part
one
of it.
hundred percent. I think so 100%.
So,
That's why it's so interesting doing the different. Even if we're talking about crossbreeding species, psilocybin and stuff the other night for that dynamic. I mean, it can create something that's never been experienced before. I think it's really interesting.
yeah, Munchies with Smell says I honestly smoke before I do any kind of workout because it gets me in that focus more anyway. So when I'm working out, whether I'm running or lifting or yoga,
Yeah.
yeah, I think it does kind of heighten the focus in a certain way. I feel like if we're talking like Monroe focus levels, it does seem to like kind of elevate that focus. There might be some kind of like other effects to doing
I
that,
I feel
like
like it does
drawbacks.
the internal focus. Yeah, I mean maybe I don't know, but like because I feel the focus thing too. I feel more focused, not just like cognitively, not scattered. Like the flow, the cognitive focus is very fluid. I very much enjoy. That's why I do it so consistently. It's fine. So I have to do it. No, very much enjoy the relationship I have with like
Okay.
cannabis. But like
Yeah.
well, Sam said let's plan a flower yoga session together. Maybe we'll do that instead of meditation one time. Do a flower sun salutation yoga session together. Totally could do it on Zoom or something.
We can set it up on like later. Well, I mean, we can do it also on Zoom, but we can also like later we would be able to run the podcast with some way to we could do yoga from here, so I can run it easily from here with a good
Yeah.
camera and shit. So we could do yoga like that, which is cool. So
See, Carl said Samantha, I'm down. Jen said sounds fun. Samantha, can I come? Let's see, singing. I love mushrooms. They're a gift. My MDMA experiences were life changing in a huge way. Weed doesn't do it for me. Well, awesome, man. Like that's awesome. And the MDMA, I'm trying to remember, that is Molly, right? And pure, and then MDA is the other one, right?
yeah,
So I understand
that's
it
how
correctly.
I understand it.
And it's
Yeah.
set and setting too. The times I've done Molly, been by myself intentionally to connect with myself for different aspects in certain ways, so I can have some kind of experience or expression. So I haven't done any in like a really cool setting, like the rave type setting, or something that additionally has all those just normal, sober, awesome catalysts for an incredible set and setting experience.
Yeah. April says in here she'd love to teach the class if you need an instructor. And April also
Cool.
has Zoom, so technically April can now
Awesome.
call the shots on everything, pretty much, if we want to do this.
Dude, totally.
How often
Awesome.
are you willing to instruct it,
Yeah, I was
April?
like, this is something that sounds like a good weekly thing for me. I'm down. Flower yoga, man. Awesome. Talk about flower power. Talk about a hippie name, flower yoga. And it's exactly what you think it is.
Oh, man. Yeah. It looks like besides April, there's a decent bit of weed being smoked by the chat, but
right on.
April, when she smokes the weed, it just doesn't do it for her. So,
Yeah.
Which is understandable. I don't know. It's not the same as the other things listed. That's for fucking sure. So, whenever there is a need.
So it looks like that might be
how often is there a need, chat? Drop in the chat how often there is a need for flower yoga. Apparently this is a thing now that we're doing.
Apparently. Whenever there's a need, my heart. Can we all be nude too? Let's really bring in the hippie movement, man. Be comfortable with our bodies. Nobody's gonna touch you. You're all by yourself.
It's impossible.
That'd be really actually. It's probably. I'm sure they do that kind of stuff for people to help people feel comfortable, even if they're not in person. It makes sense.
Why not? It does in the long run.
I try to keep Aaron with Aaron on his joints. Dude, do you get as high as I do? Some of these shows, man. Like the other night, not always, but the other night with the actual joints, the flower joints. Yeah, that was great. April says she's tried. All right, hey, so half of them right now are cigarettes. Like I've got they make me feel special because they have white filters instead of the other ones. Plus they're menthols, so I'm kind of trying to subconsciously or get on my way out of cigarettes. But the other ones are joints. The darker ones are joints. And I've got that pen, the distillate pen.
This thing just keeps growing. Like it seems here that somehow this turned from like a random idea that came up with about smoking weed, and then it was smoking weed to do yoga together, and smoking weed to do yoga together on Zoom. So like live chats.
It's about anthropomorphizing or giving personality types to plants and plant medicines, which that's how it started. Then it morphed into all this stuff. Keep going.
Yeah. And then progresses forward more to being, can we all be nude too? Full flower yoga. Yes, my kind of yoga. So this is escalated very quickly. Okay, very quickly.
You gotta understand that if people are this comfortable with themselves in a private chat, like I'm on board. I get it. There's physiological dynamics there that people don't understand. Awesome.
Smoking weed and listening to music definitely enhances yoga practice. I would agree with that. I think music enhances everything. Really. Like if I'm ever trying to do some kind of like procedural robot work, like I don't listen to dubstep a lot, but if I'm trying to do procedural robot work, I put dubstep on for sure. I get like 3 times as much stuff done.
Isn't that interesting? I have not found a music I don't like in the right context or setting.
Yeah.
Right?
Most of the time I listen to like light instrumental shit though, pan drums and fucking cool guitar riffs and flutes and violins and solos and chill shit like that, lo-fi stuff.
Sometimes I listen to songs from movie soundtracks on repeat for days at a time. Like that one I sent you, I've been listening to that for days, man. I was listening to that for the last few hours.
Samantha says, should we shower before or after? I mean, at this rate, fuck it, let's shower during. I mean, like, what the fuck is, we'll keep smoking weed, we'll just take a shower, we'll just hang out all day, like, we'll just carry our phone around, live streaming all day. It's all good. We'll have to get a different platform than YouTube. I mean, like, that shit's coming down real quick, but... well, I guess we're doing it on Zoom. We're doing it on Zoom. Yeah, I mean, we play it. That's private. They can't take that down. Ain't nobody taking that down. So we just get in a Zoom call, basically, like, tomorrow morning at, like, 6 a.m., and then we do naked. We don't even get dressed. We do naked yoga, and we just leave those phones on, basically, for the rest of time. And then this idea has gone full scale, right, at that point in time. Now we all live stream our lives together.
to normalize the potentiality of this, whether it happens or not, or whether, who knows? I'm not getting up at 6. That's just not going to be in my habit schedule at this point in time. I'll tell you that. Okay, how good the flower.
I'm not getting up at 6. I don't care what it's for.
Yeah, those shit.
So it's funny because I was just talking to you about like getting up for a thing that you actually wanted to do, and right now we just basically offered you to get up at 6 o'clock in the morning for naked stoned yoga live streaming with mostly women. And you were like, I'm still not getting up at 6. Like, you're not doing it. You're never getting up at 6, Aaron.
For one, it shows you how it's cannot be a sexual thing, really. And I'm sure April and all the people in the chat, or anybody seriously talking about it, understands. You create a safe, sacred space. It's a very different dynamic.
No one said it was about that. I'm just saying it's a really good offer, and you're still not going to get up at 6.
Well, I know. I was going to talk about what I just said before you said that, but that is additionally funny. Yeah, I mean, I'm talking about the idea in general is great. I like normalizing weird things, man. I've fucking done neurotherapy, and I could talk all day about the technology of it. Doesn't mean you have to do it.
This concept, I have a feeling I'll be the only one showing up nude on Zoom. Oh, hey, it's like, this is awkward.
Oh, that would have to be like a precursor rule. Like once the kid, like knowing that you're coming in, we're showing up nude, so nobody feels like, oh shit, weird.
Joe's got her back though. As long as Joe gets the link,
there you go.
That's not going to happen to her. Be all right. So
he promises he will be fully nude when it enters the chat. I promise.
So Samantha votes for it. It says 6 a.m. nude at noon on Sundays. 6
a.m. Nude at noon on Sundays, huh?
Would you, in the chat, would you rather stay awake to watch the sunrise or wake up to watch the sunrise? I really I don't know, like a lot of the time, I feel like I bounce between these two myself.
Really?
Yeah.
Well, I guess. Yeah, I can see that. Keep going.
For sometimes I like being like the quietness of night, and I like really get into that jam, and I'm like getting a really high productivity during that time. And then like I would much rather just like stay up to watch the sunrise because I like won't remember to go to bed anyways. So it's like it just happens. You know what I mean?
Right. Yeah.
But like waking up to do it, sometimes I like waking up really early because it's just like you get that productivity started as early as possible. You know what I mean? It feels good to wake up really early.
For the sunrise, sometimes. Like I like if I'm waking up or staying up just for the sunrise, like I'm intentionally going to be staring at the sun, like at the sunrise. That is my I'm taking deep moments of joy in that experience. Definitely staying up all night for the sunrise.
It's funny. The results right now are like just statistics all the time, right? Like we have a wake up to see it, stay up to see it, and one that's both.
Yeah, that's what I was gonna say. No, Bob's right. I was gonna say, or like if you're camping or in a certain dynamic, sometimes it's really nice that you wake up naturally, really early. You're by yourself, man. You get to go out, be on the beach or out on the mountain or the rocks or the forest or whatever. Be there as the sun rises and the animals start doing what they do. Yeah, beautiful shit, man. But usually staying up all night, especially like on Lucy, anytime that so it kicks in either at sunrise or sunset. Yeah.
April likes sleep more than those things that you just listed, so she would prefer to wake up for it.
Yeah.
Rather stay awake and watch the stars still. Now if the night, okay, modulating the question a little bit. If there was a major electromagnetic storm and the night that you were staying up to watch the sunrise was filled with crazy auroras, right? Northern lights, they were just amazing. Would you rather stay awake to watch the sunrise or wake up to watch the sunrise on that day?
I'd be up like a little kid on fucking Christmas
morning.
No,
you gotta stay up all night, man, for that.
I do that too. I probably would.
Middle of the night, that's what you want.
You said if it was going to come up at sunrise or something, then I'd wake up for that. But yeah, I'd stay up for days for that shit, man. I was in Alaska, unfortunately.
Have you seen the Northern Lights?
No. So listen to this. So I was in Alaska. We were
in the chat. Have you seen the Northern Lights? Also.
Oh yeah.
Sorry.
Yeah, please do, because here's an interesting experience with my ex-wife. She had saw the Northern Lights when she was growing up in the Midwest, and she was like 14 or something. And you should grow up in the culture, so you use the symbol sets you can to interpret this incredible thing you've never seen before. And it's like she said, it was like shooting like beams of like light coming at her and all across the sky, and it was so exhilarating to like her being. She thought Jesus was coming back, right? This is it. This is the fucking rapture.
It's Jesus.
It totally makes sense. And so I wish you would have thought that. But then, so I wanted to see, I
Sure.
want to be a part of that like my whole life. And I know I will. It's fine. I'm super stoked for that, the actual 3D moment in time, collapse of that quantum reality when it actually happens, because I'm already so excited for it. Um, but I went up to Alaska hoping, hey, maybe we'll see them. We were literally taking a trip from the bottom, like Anchorage, and went down to Seward, the ice, what the hell are they called? Glacier tours, saw like orca whales, and I was, I'm always excited. That's always great, but I cried a lot way unexpectedly because that was really cool. They were there for like 15 minutes, man.
But I cried a lot way unexpectedly.
It was great. And then we took the trip all the way to northern Alaska, all the way to all the way up by North Pole, Alaska, like the farthest, the north they call it the North Pole. It's named North Pole, Alaska, and it's the highest point. And we were there on the equinox, or sorry, on the summer solstice. And so the sun only came down like 2 or 3 inches above the mountains, not the horizon, above the mountains, and then went back up on that night. So no aurora borealis, but that was cool.
There's unfortunately there's a lot of no's in the chat. I feel bad because really it's just so cool. We got to figure out a way to fix this. Maybe we need a location that's both at one of the poles or both of the poles and the equator, so we can test the differences.
What's interesting, if you've seen the articles over the last year, the Northern Lights has been coming farther and farther south, like even being able to see it down. And like there's an article a couple months ago that was here in Seattle. You could see it if you got just a little bit out of the city, and I missed it, but like it's been going a lot farther south, which is interesting.
Yeah, I mean it's it's been getting stronger. There's been like weird a lot of solar flares that were big, and I mean Schumann resonance seems to have some kinds of correlation to it sometimes. Like we haven't drawn like what that actual thing is, but there's oftentimes when there's big electromagnetic storms, you also get a spike in that. That makes sense.
Okay. Speaking of which, will you pull up on there, see if it's running? Sometimes they go down for weird reasons, but actually, let me say the exact link. It's the HeartMath Institute's the Schumann they use, and it's a way more understandable graph than the one most people post.
I have to show a photo first. I just had to find it real quick.
And this runs off the consciousness monitors or the other sensors and shit that they talk about. Greg Braden talks about in all his work and stuff. This is the one he refers to and uses, I'm pretty sure, and it's I've found to be a lot more helpful because I've tracked this for years. And it's fascinating. Just relating to my own life and things that go on. I'll change my binaural beats and stuff based on Schumann resonance at times, and like it's really fascinating shit.
That's the last time I saw the Northern Lights right there.
Oh, nice. That's your picture?
Yeah, I took that picture.
Dude, where were you?
North of Leavenworth.
Shut up! Not even that far. You were in Washington.
Washington State, my friend. North of Leavenworth, yes.
Cool, man. Beautiful. How was that for you? How was that experience for you?
That night was crazy high, actual like magnetic index, like crazy high. Honestly, and it was very weird. Like I could really literally feel these electromagnetic waves like pulsing over me. I was up like laying in the back of my truck, and it was a lot. It felt right, but it's interesting because it's not. I mean the picture helps it, right? Because you take you're taking a low shutter speed, like really slow shutter speed, to capture more light. So it really like the movement ends up looking like it's static, you know what I mean? But it was very much more, like wavy all over the place all the time. So when you get a longer exposure, then it looks like this. The saturation's boosted a little bit to make it stand out. But it definitely was like it was a very visible aurora. And you could definitely feel it. I'm very interested at some point in time in my life going to Tromsø, Norway is the place that's really known for this, but anywhere near that or north of that would be even better because like it's actually underneath the auroras, and like that's really actually where I want to see that. Like seeing them off in the distance is cool, but over your head is like, whoa, it's fucking next level.
I did that shit. There's a this documentary, I just had it out because I thought I might actually use it. It came to mind. I don't know, I'll find it. But it's a documentary on the South Pole and people doing work down there. But it shows one of the night it shows during the winter they're there when it's dark for 3 months at a time. The aurora borealis that was out. And I saw this documentary years ago, and it just, again, I mean, just tears streaming down my face, like took my breath away. The energy from it, and just the visuals that's in real life what they saw. They showed videos, insane, more than like some of the Aurora Borealis ones, but it was very like the sky was very melty. Actually, come to think of it, kind of like on Lucy. But it was beautiful.
Yeah.
Did you get that link I sent? Oh, Joe said I remember that. Was he with you?
He was in Leavenworth at that point in time. This is from Tromsø. This is like, oh God, so cool. Like these fjords right up on the water, and then these auroras right overhead. Oh my gosh, it's so amazing. Like, whew.
Yeah. Okay, find that. I sent you on Messenger the link to the Schumann Resonance site that I used. Throw it on the webpage or on the screen.
I'm getting there, Jesus.
Whoa, sir, that's space Jesus to you, sir.
Wait, does it? Oh, okay, it's a Facebook. Why does it do that now? It's so weird. So, do you want me to actually? Yeah. Okay. Here we go.
Yeah.
All right. It looks like. So
what's cool is it breaks it down over different regions. I think there's 6 different regions they have these sensors in. And so you get to see the Schumann resonance at specific places around the Earth. So I don't know how much you can zoom in on that. That top one, I'm pretty sure, is South Africa. For the last 3 years or so, South Africa has been like their low end is 100 or so. And on that, what? Yeah, it's a little lower now.
This purple line is South Africa.
Yeah, well, look at the key right below it. I'm pretty sure it is.
I don't know because they say numbers. Oh wait, okay, we got 6. Yeah, South Africa if Hlui.
And that's just the last, however long. Change the scale to go for the last.
What kind of name is this?
Yeah, go to the change the scale to go for the last year.
Over the last year.
Yeah.
A lot of spikes. South Africa's a lot higher.
Yeah.
South Africa's a lot higher. What is this spike though? Like Jesus.
So what's interesting is Michael Tellinger has done a lot of work there.
717.
Okay, let me keep talking. I'm gonna grab this book. Michael Tellinger has done work there for a long, long time. He's discovering the stones that ring like bells down there. There's millions upon millions and tens upon thousands of.
Yeah, I've looked at some of his work.
Yeah, he's got some great shit. Well, he actually got involved with taking down the actual banking system down there, and was they had some lawsuits and stuff that actually were going through and making headway. And at one point, he was, I'm pretty sure, back in 2014, 15, working to actually get into government, or actually be the prime minister or some shit. And like, it's like when you get in those roles, it's like, oh, great. But he was doing that after taking down the banking system. So anyway, really interesting shit. He wrote this book, or not wrote, did he write this? Yeah, he did. He wrote this book.
I didn't realize there was so much of a variance of this everywhere.
I know. Isn't that interesting? I've been following that for years, man. So take Africa out of there, so it brings the scale up a little more. Yeah, so you can see their lines a little more clearly. Because I track, I think Alberta, Canada is one of them, right? And then California is another one.
California is the blue line. Saudi Arabia is the black line. Lithuania is the green line. This is the one that you normally see on graphs, and the Lithuania one, the green line in like whatever, images on Instagram or whatever. Alberta, Canada is this red one. The lighter blue one is New Zealand, and that's all that's on the chart right now. The rest of them are pretty equal. Like this black one is very interesting activity though. Really, what was black again? Saudi Arabia.
So
it's so weird.
Here's what's interesting about that. That's when they drop their sensor readings out. There's times the sensor data is not available.
Okay, that's yeah. Why do they do that?
Well, good question. I don't know. Who knows? But whatever.
Their trend. They're about. You expect them to be about equivalent to the green line based off of what they are in relation to the green line. You know what I mean? When you do have sensor data.
Yeah.
You have the same trough in the green line right here.
Yeah.
That you have in the black line. It's just a slightly lower magnitude and a little bit later that it takes that same trough.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I think it's functionally the same as the green line. Maybe it's having like crazy spikes when they drop out their sensor data. I don't fucking know, but
Well, I do that. I'll do it, obviously right now, but also patterns over a month or 3-month periods. Just look at the patterns in the area, reflect on my own energetic state through that time and seeing how things correlate and all that dynamic. It's just a really good graph for it, and I know you're loving it.
So
Okay,
weird.
To clarify, Joseph said, I remember that. He said it was a cloud, though. He said, well, I was pretty fucked up that night, accidentally, of course.
Stones that ring like bells. Yes, Michael Tellinger talking about.
So he found these stones. Actually, I imagine he probably would have them somewhere in here. He's written a lot of books about it. But these stone circles. Actually, maybe you can pull up an image while I'm talking about it. The stone circles and stones that rings like bell. You can go on YouTube, Michael Tellinger, or just stones that rings like bells. You can link like bells. You can probably find it. But he shows that these stones, they're all patinaed over, so they just look like full solid rock or stones. But when you actually strike them, they ring like bells. And so they would do these in their own sacred geometry patterns or whatever to create these vortexes. They've measured out the electromagnetic fields and all the equipment and everything inside these stone circles. So and there's I think in the book like well over 100,000 of these. And each one's made up of hundreds or thousands of stones. They're all over Africa, or even maybe just South Africa. I don't know. But Ubuntu is let's see that book. Let's do that real quick. So this book, Ubuntu Contributionism, and exposing the global banking fraud. But he goes into and I've heard him talk about it at length, and they've actually set this up on the earth. They're doing this with communities. They found a way to structure communities to get them off of money at all and to work communally. And I couldn't break down the whole concept in a way that wouldn't just be sound like it's full of holes. There you go.
This is a 4-minute video where Michael Tellinger is talking about how these stones do and stuff. And since April's interested, I'm going to play it in full.
Please do. No, great. You know what? While you do that, I'm gonna run to my car and get some food.
I'm going to show you some of the most remarkable artifacts that I've collected. This particular stone in my hand here, this beautiful Stone Age club, it looks like something out of Flintstones. I'm going to show you how they ring like bells, because I can't carry these with me all over the world. So a quick demonstration how these stones ring like bells. I just discovered that in geological terms, these stones, this particular stone, the Hornfels in South Africa, is also known as ringstone for that very specific reason. And to ring these, I'm going to use my brand new tool that I've just collected about a week ago, this phenomenal, absolutely phenomenal artifact. And I'm going to use this to ring these stones. We always joked when I found this, that this looks like a Stone Age guitar. And it's pretty much like that, And I want to show you that it is very closely related to a musical instrument in ancient times for very specific reasons. Now, you might think that the stone shape is just accidental and that it broke off or something. You'd be mistaken, because I've collected probably about 4 or 5 stones that are very, very similar in shape, very similar carving structure. There's broad base here and then down to a narrow tip. And somebody removed this particular piece of the stone over there for specific reasons, as you will hear, which I'll ring a little bit more. They ring like bells. But it's also important to note that you cannot carve or chip the stone. It will splinter and fragment, and it will not be chipped or carved. Okay, so these shapes that we see here must have been molded in some way, and molded for specific acoustic properties. And this is why. You've got to hold it a very specific way to make as little contact as possible to get it to ring and resonate at its optimum. Now, remember, it's also covered in patina, the skin of the rock, this brown reddish color that covers the rock, that is no longer the original black or charcoal color, the original color of the metamorphosized quartzite that's underneath. And that's how it rings. I can actually feel my fingers underneath are deadening. the ringing because I'm holding it and it's deadening some of the effect. There we go. That's better. That's what you want. You realize that this thing really rings like a bell and it reverberates for quite a long time. All right, and now to show you that this is not the only one, here's the other one. The Stone Age Club. And I drove over this myself a few times, driving up the mountain of the forest road, and eventually I stopped and picked it up because I realized this is one of the most remarkable tools that you will ever find, and thank God I did. And it is very heavy. I'm out of breath because I'm holding my breath not to make a noise, and this thing weighs probably about 15 kilos, so and there you go. Demonstration how these stones ring like bells, and they were used in all kinds of ways and fashions, just like the Ankh, to create specific vibrational frequencies and specific notes to use as a form and a source of energy.
Wow.
Have you seen that before?
Oh yeah, I'm very familiar with Michael Tellinger's work, but if you make that noise, like, I'm very interested. Pretty much is how that goes.
Yep. Yeah, it's like all the other aspects of me when hearing that. Obviously, I'm paying attention or engaged, but like all these other multidimensional aspects of me immediately pay attention. They're like present and like what?
Yeah. He's done all kinds of interesting things with the ruins that are all over out there too. Have you heard about that stuff?
What's his take on it? What's he say about it?
I think his belief is that there is some kind of energy generation system, but
Yes.
I'm not sure exactly what he believes they were generating energy
I
with.
don't know the specifics. Yeah.
But there's really a lot of interesting things like this image that I will show in a second, how there is like really cool, perfect geometrical overlays in some of these stone rings, which is like really interesting, I think.
And these are the Michael Tellinger ones, by the way. These are all these different, those are the stones that rings like bells right there.
Yeah. Those stones are found at these locations, right?
Well,
Like
they're they're usually assembled of them. Those are all those stones, or many of those stone circles. I don't know about those ones specifically, but many of them are made of specifically those stones that rings like bells.
Right, yeah, like that's just like the kind of fucking stone that's around there or something.
Well, apparently,
bring up another one.
Think about the sound too. What do they have?
The geometry in this thing, dude.
Okay, look, so I have no idea what their ceremonies or rituals or whatever they did in there, right? But what if the whole childlike thing, they have kids run around the circle on the inside or outside, just a stick or something, dinging all the bells on the thing and creating vortexes of like joy and music.
Laughing, man.
Yeah.
What does a bunch of laughing in the middle of like a circle of those things do? I want to know what that sounds like.
Right. Come on, man. That's what I'm talking about. It's generating the most powerful loosh I think that can be generated here. Like deep childlike joy and laughter.
So that's great for feeling good. I think he literally means like electricity energy though.
Oh, no. I agree. I'm just thinking in additional dynamics energetically.
He seems to pull over into the Sumerian story too, where he thinks that basically like they were making people like harvest gold or something too.
Well, the Anunnaki story. Yeah, I think the Anunnaki story. I mean, there's legitimacy to it. It's just there's so much history on Earth. That's not really a huge part of it.
Yeah,
it's a recent part of it, but you don't think so?
Yeah. I don't know. I mean, there's only one translation of anything that like really agrees with this Anunnaki story. That's the Zechariah Sitchin stuff.
Well, no. If you go through the extra text, though, it makes sense. It lines up with the extra text, the Vedic text, the different things, the giants, the extra dimensional beings, the Anakim, traces back to the Anunnaki in the Bible, Hebrew texts. Like, there's a lot of etymological connection too throughout the different religions that came out of there.
Yeah, I mean, but when that happens, then it's really questionable about whether any of that stuff actually existed.
Oh, fair enough. No, I know. Really, honestly, To me, anything outside of like the last 4 generations at most, if you don't have a living ancestor, everything's questionable. Or you don't have
Sure.
someone carrying on the living story. That's why the oral tradition, oral historians were always the most valuable more than any text. It was carrying on the stories and tradition through actual cadence and intonation and the energy of the verbal transmission did something in the DNA and kept it active or something, you
Yeah.
know? So I don't know. There's not a lot of history. There's a lot of more evidence out there in archaeology that points to tons of more history than we've been told. But all that, it's
Hmm.
like, who really, really knows? And just because you find artifacts and you can date them, who the fuck knows how they were used or what they were for or even what their intentions were? The millions of myriads of things around that, like we don't even know, you know?
Yeah. Yeah. Who knows? I
Who
mean, like
knows?
people, especially when you have the outlier of that, people literally just happen to do it like that because they were like, I think this looks cool. You know what I mean? And it
Yeah.
wasn't really like some big super plan. And we're looking back here, reverse engineering like some futuristic technology. And they were just like, I don't know, put a circle over there, you know? And that's just
It-
like the way that it turned out.
Wait, are you saying you're thinking that's how it happened?
I'm saying that there's always the outlier possibility
Oh,
that
sure.
just like this geometry, especially when you have geometry like what's on the screen lined up, that people just literally just like found that shape aesthetic and they were like, okay, well, we got one here, put one next to it. And then they were like, well, if we got these ones here, like it makes sense to have the other one triangulated because then there's like less space between them. So we put those there. And then they're like, well, like this one has a yard and this one has a yard and this one has a yard. And then like, well, but we got this other thing, we need to keep it over here. And they just kind of like, it just ends up that size. Like there's not actually all this planning and all like, oh my gosh, it's all some specific thing. You know what I mean?
Okay, if you say so. I mean, the only way I can see that happening, like chaos being unplanned action turning into that
Well, it's
specific
not
of
every
order.
single place that's like that. A whole bunch of those places
No,
are just like random shit all over.
yeah, yeah, if they're actually random, if there's no actual geometry in there. But I think through without conscious engagement, you can through subconscious, whatever, manifest things. I mean, I've done that shit. Then I'm like, it comes out, it's like try to find out for somebody else that was done perfectly accurate. I'm like, really? I kind of just did what felt right, you
Yeah,
know? So,
yeah.
okay, Nina says all my culture's history was burned by Alexander the Great. My family has a lot of oral history. Nina, awesome, and I would love if you at some point feel comfortable coming and sharing your
What
oral
is your
history with the show.
cultures? Which culture are we talking about? Are we talking about like
Well,
Persian or something?
even yeah, I want to know that too. It'd be interesting. But even just her family's oral history culture within her family, that's
Sure, yeah, I'd
powerful
love to hear
stuff,
that.
man. That's very real. I'd love to hear
Yeah.
your history as you know it, because that's very real to me. That would mean a lot to me more than just reading shit and like whatever.
I know nothing about the Anunnaki and such topics. I'd like to know more. All
There's some
basically
rabbit holes we
all
can go down.
when we're talking Anunnaki and such topics, basically the way that I guess I would collect all that together is what you're saying is that you're interested in basically Sumerian literature and the potential belief systems that reside around it. So
Totally.
Anunnaki inside of basically Sumerian literature, Naki means son of, and Anu is a god that is like one of the higher gods. We still in a certain way revere him with the idea of a year being an annum or annually, right? Like we still use these Anu things, and there's other places where we use that as well. Nevertheless, these literally just means the sons of Anu, right? So
Mm.
it's like it's the sons of God, basically, is what Anunnaki means. And but does like in biblical literature in a certain way, like we are the sons and daughters of God, right? So technically, like we're the Anunnaki, right? I mean, so this all has to do with like the Epic of Gilgamesh, and there's if you want to know about basically Sumerian mythology.
Hmm.
And then also the work of Zechariah Stitch and other various people. Not a lot of people actually translate this stuff because it's written in cuneiform, and most of cuneiform is basically tablets that say, you know, like this guy had 15 pieces of grain and he gave it to this guy for 10 of these things. Like that,
Hmm.
most of it's business records like that.
Yeah.
So we're translating a lot of tablets of that stuff, but there's really only like a handful of people who even know how to translate the stuff. And so it really hasn't seen like a fine-tooth comb of translation by any stretch of the imagination. It does
Right.
seem that there definitely is some pantheonic belief stories in there, and they do seem to match a whole lot of other world belief systems in terms of their overarching story components, I would say. So,
Yep.
And it's an enormous rabbit hole because it's basically the size of a whole religion. You know what I mean?
And there's a lot of overlapping things, and it's really interesting. I mean, for me, that was a really interesting rabbit hole, especially correlating it to the biblical text and my whole dynamic journey and different encounters I've had personally and certain dynamics there. So,
sure.
But I think what you're saying is definitely true. I mean, there's one thing to dive into holes in a way that's fascinating, just to learn more about it, and then always finding ways how they're mirrors of yourself, archetypes, their stories. They're not actual history now. Doesn't matter now. Nibiru isn't coming back. I know it's a real thing. I looked into that. I do not believe that is coming back. That's something that we would believe back by collecting fear and mass propaganda over. I believe we would actually manifest that. I don't believe that's
Since she doesn't really know anything about that, inside of those stories, there's an idea that basically the Anunnaki reside on a planet called Nibiru that comes into basically near proximity to Earth every so long period of time, and at that point in time basically the Anunnaki come down to the Earth and go through what is functionally a harvest, where in some way, shape, or form they get what they need from the things of this planet in order to sustain life on their planet. One of those things being gold to heal the completely broken ozone layer of their atmosphere, which apparently at one point in time the people of Earth were using structures potentially like the ones that you see on the screen right now to harvest said gold underneath the idea of basically what would kind of probably be the idea of like a pharaoh or a Persian god king, one called Enki, who was basically tasked to go to Africa and oversee all of the humanoids, the lesser humanoids that were there to collect gold, to basically get it together, to ship it back to Nibiru to heal their ozone layer. And functionally, that humans are actually not a real race that would have come about normally, but rather that the Anunnaki, a hyper advanced technology, was actually came down here and spliced their DNA with that of a monkey or other things potentially, that then led to the what you know as a human today. So functionally, the humans are a slave race of the Anunnaki that are constantly harvesting the things that they need until they come back and take it from us. It's pretty much the concepts of the story. I'm not a big fan of it. Like, I'm just not going to live my life believing that that's really what's going on, and there's not really any proof. So, nevertheless, that's the basic Reader's Digest version.
That's a great Reader's Digest version for sure. And there's a lot of overlap with the Anunnaki and those belief systems with a lot of the Christian dynamics energetically that I've encountered personally. And it really comes down to the thing, they were harvesting gold, but really it's the gold in you. So if there are Anunnaki beings and creatures, and I've had some experiences and those have been interesting, the point is we don't need to validate them and make their history actually real. We are the ones here now, not them. Let's say that was a real history. They had some goals they wanted to do. They were trying to run mankind and do their thing. That's not their time now. It's our time. You know, so really it's the gold inside of you that you're the one harvesting it, not someone else. Or if someone else you're encountering with is harvesting the gold from inside of you by just beautiful interactions or ways that make you flower or produce that gold, that person is also wanting and allowing you to keep that gold for yourself, not siphon it off for their own purposes. So yeah, it's a whole other topic. We get into certain things that'll come up from time to time, but I mean, ultimately, like connecting it back to ourselves, whatever mythology or any history we look into, it's how does it resonate with you, with your DNA and the stories and the understandings and the inner connections that happen diving into older stories. Yes, it's also
same thing. I mean,
oh, sorry, go ahead.
It was a really long time ago that this stuff happened, but know that we don't really actually have any physical proof that any of these stories actually transpired.
All right, we'll agree to disagree because I don't want to dive into a shitload of documentary stuff that I can't pull up at a whim. Which becomes the hard part with taking in insane amounts of knowledge and you can't quickly reference it. You got to let some subjects go.
Yeah.
Which is fine. It doesn't matter to the point of it ultimately anyway, really. I mean, it's more about us here now. What we have as proof is our physical bodies, you know, proof that there's
I've looked into it a lot. I've probably seen whatever evidence that you would present. I mean, anything that has to do with basically any Babylonian or Sumerian or Persian representations of these things as they kind of fell out throughout the entire cradle of life, or potential fallouts from that as a byproduct of really any kind of cultures that moved out of there. Like, I mean, they got stories that might be pointing to that, but they could be also something else, and we don't know.
Right. Well, I find more interesting anyway than debating like the evidence of things. That's why I don't care to debate it. If I can pull them up, maybe I'm wrong. I don't really, it doesn't really matter. It's more the stories we make of the stories, because it's all one story, right, Zach?
I mean, functionally inside of your own
Yeah,
life, it is
totally.
all one story.
Well, that's the same reason though. It's like I don't feel like there's not many things I'm gonna fucking follow my sword for, like, die to defend. It's like, dude, it doesn't really matter. It's all about you. I'm not trying to
Yeah.
debate like the fact on this and the fact on that. Like when it really comes down to it, it's like, chill out. Let's talk more about the conceptual application, our practical application to our lives, not just like the facts.
At first with the Anunnaki one, because like I couldn't prove or disprove, I just
Mhm.
like basically bailed out from it, going like, well, if they're doing all that shit, then like really, what am I gonna do about it? You know what I mean? Like,
Yeah,
why fight against it? I mean, okay, they're splicing DNA and flying planets around.
yeah,
Okay, yeah, I'm gonna be a
totally.
good fight against that.
Well, but you are though. It's your DNA. You have to. You cannot. When we take back tacit consent, even through genealogical history, let's say that's a real thing. They put their own signature code into our DNA in some way, so they have access to human beings energetically in a way we may not be aware of, to get information or to steal energetically from us, or because of contracts we've made in past lives or this life tacitly. But then when we take that energy back through space and time and backwards and forward in time, we're a sentient creature now in this vessel. I mean, beyond just this vessel, but the vessel itself being manipulated over time. And we have full authority and autonomy over our own DNA, even if it was somebody had touched it before.
Yeah, I mean that sounds like what the Anunnaki want you to believe, my friend.
You think so?
I don't know, maybe. You
Why
know
would they
what
want
I
you to have
mean?
your autonomy over your own DNA? I'm not saying that they don't have grabs in you. You got to find them and get them out. I pulled tentacles out of me before from the Anunnaki, but like, but ultimately I can do that because this is my vessel. This is my DNA. I don't care what you've
Sure.
done before. I
I do.
cancel
I
all
completely
contracts I've
agree
ever
with
made.
that.
Yeah.
But that doesn't mean I'm right. You know what I mean? Maybe worst case scenario, I'm actually wrong. And exactly what
Okay.
they want me to think is that I can completely stop whatever they're doing, or there's nothing to worry about, right?
And as
Because
much I
like,
appreciate the thought progression, like where's the balance between that? Because it's like, how do you ever really know?
yeah, I mean, well, balance is really a process of consistently wavering back and forth, usually.
Totally. Yeah.
So it's pretty
You
much what
get to
balance is, right?
always just finding a little place to get in the antithesis perspective, Zach.
Yeah, I like it.
Yeah, it's cool. All right, what do we got, chat? No one else eat us to consume us. Yeah, that's a whole.
I know what does exist, like right now exists, and I appreciate that right now exists, and I love all of you, and I love
100%.
you, Aaron, and I
I
love
love
that
you,
we can
Zach.
dive into topics that are weird that we don't know whether they're true or not, because that's fun. Who
Yeah, no
cares?
doubt.
You know?
Like
Like
fun.
if you can get something
They're
that's
real.
valuable for your life, then sweet, and if it's just for fun, also sweet. So, yeah.
Nina said, Persian exactly. Yeah, you
Mhm.
intuited that correctly.
Well,
So,
it's not really, that was more logical. I mean, there was really only one culture that Alexander came across that he was basically like, fuck you guys, and it was the
mm,
Persians. So
okay, fair enough. Yeah,
the
good
whole reason
deduction.
why he went on his little like war tear was because he believed that Persian money had paid for the assassination of his father, as the story goes. So they were kind of like the prime objective of him even setting off to be a general.
Yeah,
So. But then
interesting.
he
Didn't know
definitely like implanted himself in Persia and made it basically like the new seat of Macedonian culture during Alexandrian reign.
that. Mm-hmm.
But which wasn't really actually very long, because then he died and it got split up underneath all of his generals. But still, what was basically a Macedonian lord was still holding the land, and he was probably worse than Alexander. So, but still, I mean, like the
Yeah.
reason that the land was taken was Alexander. I mean, really, the
Well,
reason that the land was taken is because the Persians were kind of dicks, also, though, too. So,
it's interesting.
yeah,
So I certainly believe, and that's not the only book burning that's ever happened. I mean, that's the danger and the safety of having a written text carried over time. Is the safety is you preserve the text. The danger is you lose the oral history actually explaining the true meanings of the text, and they can be twisted. Like in what was that really good
yeah,
movie with Denzel Washington, Eli, or the Book of Eli, or Enoch, or whatever, where he's blind in a post-apocalyptic age, and that guy, he had the only Bible left, and he'd memorized the whole thing, and he's supposed to get to the place where had a printing press and we're making copies of books. And this guy was trying to steal the Bible. He wanted it because he knew the power of manipulation with the text.
yeah.
And that was the whole premise of the movie. It was really good. Nina said,
I would like
one
to
thing.
go real quick to
I'll
this
do it.
though, 'cause, like the Persian thing. I should say
Yeah.
that like Persians were kind of dicks, as the Western history goes, which may be completely manipulated about what they were. So I really actually don't have any idea. Yeah, that's what she said. I literally had not even read this stuff yet.
Yeah,
because I'm like away on my phone. But totally, like that might just be the story they want you to think. You know, that's literally what I was saying about the Anunnaki thing. You know, that's what they want you to think.
Like really, like Nina, if you come on, know shit about the Anunnaki through oral history that totally debunks shit I said, please, I will take your oral tradition history over anything I've learned from some external source. 100%. That holds way more weight.
Yeah, I learned through somebody that knew like really long back Egyptian oral history, long time back, that like the whole story of how Alexander was at Siwa with the Oracle of Siwa was like totally not the way they went. It was not like he came in there and she was like, "Oh my gosh, you are the true son of God." It was more like he came in there and she was like said a whole lot of different things, and he was like, "No, you're gonna fucking proclaim that I'm the son of God. This is my territory now." So,
wow.
It's very possible that the whole story of Alexander the Great. Well, realize we like Alexander the Great did his thing, and then Rome tried to do the same thing. They tried to paint it as though Persia had already done that thing before, right? Mm-hmm. And so that then like basically Alexander was doing the same thing Persia was, and then Rome was doing the same thing that Alexander did. But in many ways, like that's kind of been the progression of like the monarchy or the empire ever since then, So it's very possible that they have a whole fucking storybook written behind this that's inaccurate.
Joe said, "Thanks for the spoilers." Hey, Ron. Oh, what I spoil?
The book of Eli with Denzel or something, probably. I think that's what it was.
Well, it's still super worth watching. I've watched it multiple times. That's just like an overarching premise. The actual scenes and the dialogue, so worth it. I didn't spoil shit. Fuck you.
What was the thing that Nina said about the tentacles that you brought up on the screen?
Yeah, she said, okay, pulling tentacles for me, Aaron. Interesting. My friends had to do this to them after a group meditation we attended last year. Apparently, she was a draconian. So, as a generality for group meditations or any group connection, I mean, ideally, it's with someone you trust energetically beyond just whatever. But you always do your own filters, your own overlays. You'd always like maybe talk about the coherent meditation and how that keeps you unentangled in the right ways for you.
I think it's just, that's really, when you talk about that though, it's just really about understanding connections, and these tentacles are really like one way of seeing it,
Sure. Yeah,
so when we see it as something like a tentacle, we usually kind of mean like a little bit more dark, you know what I mean? So it's kind of a dark, what we're saying as like a non-beneficial connection. So, and you always have to manage that energy, like who you're connecting with matters, and you're connecting a lot more than you probably perceive yourself to. And those connections might be like beyond the scope of what you think they are, from interactions that seem much simpler than you thought they were, like, so.
Well, and even it's nice when you have people or whatever in that group, obviously someone tuned into that, or multiple people realize there's these things that are projecting into the reality they didn't ask for or want. They trace it back to this meditation. So there's some kind of lack of awareness that they had in that meditation of additional layers going on. So it's why it's always good too to reflect at the end of your day, or just at times really reflect on situations, engagements, look for deeper layers that you didn't initially see, because you'll often find them, good and bad. I mean, if you want to call them that, but you'll find ones that are like deeply rewarding to see different energetic layers or connections, and then other ones you find like, oh shit, let me fix that. I didn't mean to let that in, or I didn't mean to come into agreement with that, or whatever. And you fix it literally, like, I guess you could say in your mind, but
yeah. This is especially important if you're going to take part in like, deep medicine ceremonies. It should be like always noted with ayahuasca, especially down in the jungle, that not everybody serving up ayahuasca in the jungle is doing it for the right reasons. So there's a lot of sorcery inside of ayahuasca culture. So, you gotta trust yourself, or know your people, or whatever the case is like that. And you gotta make the right choices. April says she's worked on people that have had tentacles embedded deep in them, coiling around the spine. I mean, that totally does not surprise me. April's pretty damn good with the stuff that we're talking about right now.
So April,
I definitely learned firsthand today, by the way, if anybody's in California and you need incredible body work, or actually like it's like a shamanic journey through yourself that allows you to release traumas that you may not even know that you have, then you need to get in touch with April Gledhill, because she's very good at this, and she would be able to help you in some way, probably, if she's got time for that. I don't know how her schedule is. I'm literally just plugging her because she did it on me today and it was fantastic.
Well, and we'd love, April, for you to come on the show and plug yourself and just come on and chat and share some of those experiences, and maybe how you have helped people in those situations or whatever. Because I've heard very similar stories, and there's lots of interesting ways that people process or deal with those things. and they're always connected to different things. It's just really interesting. Every story is unique and important.
April, I would be interested to hear if you feel like those tentacles are usually always like this connection to something. Like it basically can be related to a connection to something. Because that's kind of how I always see them. And in your experience, Aaron, right? Like it was basically like these things kind of came up and they put this tentacle into you, right? Because I think you told me about this, and then you like reverse engineered it.
Yeah, so they were in my face energetically, and it felt like it was coming like 5D, 6D for whatever reason. It's just I had that awareness of that, and it was like just in my face or my energetic field, like very, and even visual. My eyes open, it was like coming through into 3D. It was different than anyone I've had before, and it was very aggressive. I mean, I felt fine, but it was just like somebody coming up and talking to you right on the street in your face. Like I was fine, but it's kind of like, all right, guys, back up a little bit. It's a little rude, you know.
Sure.
And so
Yeah.
it kind of just I pulsed from like my core out and bumped them out, 6-10 feet, whatever, and just tried to engage them and have a conversation with them. But I noticed the whole time that they were, before I did that, when they were in my face, I noticed I'm trying to engage them, like slow them down, like let's talk instead of just coming with your agenda or what you want to do or whatever. But and it was multiple of them. And I remember the point though, it was supposed to keep my awareness here. What I realized on another layer or dimension, or what was apparently outside of my view, was this tentacle interjecting my being or my energetic system, looking for information and planning shit and doing all this shit. And so I just got annoyed with them being rude. I mean, really, that was the feeling. I was just annoyed with them being rude. I kept eye contact with them, grabbed the tentacle, which freaked them out, and then began to, reverse engineer whatever they were looking for. I just got that information from them, whatever they implanted. I just took that back from them and just took all that as I was back feeding that tentacle all the way out. So it had no effect on me whatsoever, inside, outside, time, backwards and forwards. But now they violated my space. So thank you for all that extra information. Bounced them back. They were still being rude. So I just made them go away.
That brings up an interesting idea too of like, kind of commanding your space with your mind. Like in this kind of visionary space, we definitely see the effects of it. But what are those effects just also in like kind of your normal physical life, if you really do believe in your ability to like command your space and make sure that there's not fucking parasites, for lack of a better word, up in your house. So
yeah, big gnarly tentacles when you're not paying attention. No, I think you're not paying attention.
Yeah, I mean, if that's what you want to call them, for sure.
What a bunch of assholes. Just rude.
Yes, always, but usually not chosen. Yeah, I think when we like see it as this non-beneficial thing, a lot of time it was unconsciously or subconsciously. I find also with like dream analysis, when it's like a dark thing or it's shadowy or it's a cloaked figure or hooded, these kinds of things like obscured identity are generally like things that, well, you could call them non-beneficial or unconscious connections. And so oftentimes like this not chosen would also speak to, if we were just like being very psychological about it, that it's really just something that they're connected to, but they don't know that they actually made that choice. Like for instance, in like my own life, right? Like when like my mom dies, I don't want her to feel in fear. So I'm in that space and I'm trying to hold that space for her. And I'm trying to make sure that she is like seeing her son who's capable of doing it and is still smiling and loves her and cares about her. But at that same time, I'm also like kind of being willing to take on whatever fear that she has. And then I have to process that fear myself. And if we're aware of ourselves when we're doing that, it's not to say that we can't do something like that for somebody else, but we need to be aware of the energy that we are taking in so that we know to work with it. If we're unconscious of that, we might make some kind of connection where it's really just like we're just trying to do a really nice thing for somebody else, but then we have no idea that it comes on. Like, for instance, way younger in my life, like my mom was in a very bad space because of a relationship, and really like I was way too young to understand anything. I was like 7 years old or 6 years old or something, and really like my mom was just like crying a lot, and to me at that point I just really didn't want her to cry anymore. So I was just like trying to make her not cry, right? But like the energetic exchange that happened in that place is really inevitable, even though I'm actually just there just trying to stop her from crying,
Totally. Right. And so I'm a firm believer that like Jesus said, Satan has nothing in me at one point. That was after his 40 fast or after whatever, but he got to a point, he's like, look, man, Satan can't touch me. When I'm in the biblical story where he gets crucified, even in that, he says, I choose to lay my life down. And there were times like the Roman soldiers came for him to crucify him. And he literally told them, he said, well, one of the encounters, he said, who is it that you're looking for? And when he said that, it says they knocked backwards, fell onto one knee and couldn't stand, just him saying that. And so he repeated himself, who are you looking for? And they said, Jesus of Nazareth or whatever. He said, I am he, but it's not my time yet. And they were just dumbfounded. And he closed the door on them, went back to dinner. And they were just dumbfounded. And then they went back to them and said that he said it's not his time yet, you know, and like that. So they planned.
What do you want me to do?
Yeah, and then they planned to take him out another way and whatever. But like when you know it's your time, man, when you know where you're supposed to be, really, that kind of shit happens in 3D. I've had that shit happen. So, and on one hand, it's the whole, these are not the droids you're looking for. You know, really, it's like, look, man, this is what we are doing. We are owning and creating the space, especially in co-creative agreement with Mother Earth, with the beings here, with the times and the seasons that we are in, to bring balance and to get rid of systems of domination control and to come into tribal harmony around the world. And they're each in their own ways. You know, like you can tell people like, no, and they leave. They can be literally confused in their psyche, energy. They don't know what the fuck to do. You know, and you can say kindly, gently, you're honoring the space or wherever they're coming there. But yeah. If you don't have anything, my point is, if you don't have anything inside of you, energetic systems, programs, ego programs, that's why we deal with our own shadow, because that's where it gets in, our shadow, our ego, anything that's unconscious inside of us, what does Jung say? I posted a quote on it today, like, they have to make the darkness conscious. It's the only way to become enlightened. So it's always being aware of our own darkness so that you can sit in your own darkness and be comfortable with it. It's not bad. It is, though, if it's filled with things you're not aware of, and that can be scary.
I like that quote. It's like something along the lines of, until you make the unconscious conscious, you'll call it fate and it will control your life, or something like that.
That one, I think. I
love that. Yeah. So Call is saying that she finds the tentacles come from various sources, which can be associated to ETs, layered programming, or some type of controlling entity. And in healing sessions, it's usually associated to traumas. And April says that she agrees with that, but they come in through sneaky sources. I've seen them dropping into vines in Peru, like ayahuasca, then consumed by a person unknown, for sure.
Yep.
I mean, like, the ayahuasca space, like I was saying again, I mean, like, you're fucking getting wide the fuck open in a space with somebody who literally, like, if you haven't done this with someone who is like a true ayahuasquero that knows how to sing realities into existence, then you don't really understand what you're going down there for, because these people will literally control your reality while you're doing that. So you need to make sure that they have good intentions. That brings me back to Dio de Mero Minas. This individual does have very good intentions, very much so, is trying to heal people and is trying to take care of them. And that's why we're raising donations to try and help him do that, because literally for like $450 a month, we can feed an entire like village of 100 families of people and make sure that Dio has something to eat as well. And that's definitely something that I think us coming together, we can handle to help him out with that. And 100% of the dollars are going to go directly to him, and then directly to food to feed people. So it's not like some kind of charity where we're going to keep 70% to pay our executives or some kind. We ain't doing none of that noise. It's definitely just direct to him. And he's a very good guy. So, but you do need to be careful with this. Anytime you're opening up your space, and the more you're opening up your space, the more that you need to be careful with this, for sure. What are these tentacles? I don't know if I'm familiar. So like, these are something that people are experiencing either through some type of meditative vision. Maybe it's a dream, maybe it's a psychedelic vision, that you can have these visionary states in all kinds of ways with any type of near-death experiences, panic attacks, strong anxiety attacks can bring them on, all kinds of things like this, where they end up basically seeing what in their experience is some kind of tentacle entering them, being wrapped around them, connected to them, connected to their energetic bubble, connected to some kind of cord that's going from their body, where it's basically feeding into it and somehow having connection with them. And usually, it, like I said before, it's a projection of something that is, that, you know, it's an unconscious or non-beneficial connection to something. So or like, you know, as April says, energetic intruders or parasites, this is a very common name for it as well. Like the energetic parasite, you know, it attacks through a tentacle, basically, you could say. So, yeah, this is why intention is, for me, is most important when consuming anything. Yeah, there's certain intentions that I think are really, really good. And I think in a certain way, this can point into like the neuro-linguistic programming, which again, you know, shameless plug, that's something that I work with a lot. If you do not speak to yourself well, it is very important. The words that we are talking to ourselves with are very much casting a spell inside of our own reality and define the way that we perceive the things that we engage with. If we get in control of this verbiage and we start using like the right words, we can make sure that we have more control over our reality. when we're doing things like consumption of something purposely, like some mushrooms or some ayahuasca, or maybe even as like a beer or a cigarette, very much so you can project an intention into that consciously and have some kind of result because of that. But it's important to be actually managing that space, because unconscious intentions come from unconscious locations. And so if you do have anything wrong with you, which, let's face it, we wouldn't be here in a human body if we didn't have something that we could work on, there is a possibility that if you're not being conscious over your intentions, it's just not really going to go that great for you. So you're very welcome anytime. Like answering questions like that. Like, it's important to know about these things. Like there's so much inside, like, that we can talk about all day long. That's like some, super in-depth crazy concept or something. But at the same time, there's also like hundreds and hundreds of hours of stuff that we could do that really is like base concepts that explain something to people that maybe they just weren't perceiving in their reality at all. And it's not really that they need some kind of like crazy work done to them, or they need to go on some like huge hero's journey in order to deal with these things. Sometimes they literally just need to have it brought into their perception that it's even something that could be happening, and then they deal with it just fine on their own. Like, you're going to be the one that heals it anyways in the long run. Like, it really, like, the healing transpires inside of you. So yeah. So I actually would like to hear from people in the chat. I was thinking about, instead of like music at the beginning of the show, starting kind of like a format where I bring the stream up at like 7:30, and I basically put on like a 30-minute guided meditation that's basically just focused around loving yourself more, or embracing your inner child, or basically things like this. Very whole, like, they're positive for basically anyone. And then kind of having some kind of guided meditation with that, with light instrumental behind it, that if people wanted to show up before the stream every day, they could come and do this meditation from basically 7:30 to 8 o'clock. And then we would go live behind it, and we could talk about any experiences that you had, or we could talk also, like, about anything that comes up with the meditation, problems that you're having with the issues that you have with meditating or focusing, that we could maybe help you with. So I think I would like to hear from you guys, either in live chat right now or in the comments below the video. Which, if everybody that's in the chat, if you could please like on the video, and if you really have the time, like, leave a comment also that's like, these podcasts are awesome or something. The random passerby that comes on and sees even like 10 comments on a video that says this is really wonderful content, or like this is worth a watch, and it sees that it does have likes from those things and stuff, it really does help out the growth of the channel, especially at this low level. So if you have that little bit of time, I would really appreciate it if you could do that for us.
And like and subscribe always makes a difference. Little thing, yeah, makes a big difference.
If you're not subscribed and you're watching this video, please subscribe. We're gonna have a lot more content on this channel. We have more ideas than we can possibly actually do. We need help. Yep. So nevertheless, if you want to help, or if you want to see a lot more content, you're gonna be able to find it here. Also, this channel has a bunch of cool playlists on it. Most channels you go to don't have any playlists built but their own content. Aaron has taken the time to build a bunch of playlists from content all over YouTube that talks about the stuff that we do. Like, it's actually really crazy. It's kind of like a digital library of videos. So really, like, check it out.
I did really that over 4 years. Just anything I was interested in, I'd try to create a playlist based on the subject matter. So it was
4 years.
Yeah, a lot of shit
free. 4 years for free.
It's funny. That's actually half the playlist, Zach. I was looking at my other account when I started doing stuff to YouTube stuff on my Expanded Understanding like 2.5 years ago. That's probably what that's from. I have way more playlists also. I don't know if I can merge them at some point or whatever, but they're on my other channel. What's the other thing you said? I don't know. I forgot. Do you have some?
I like to see it. It looks like Mello and April are connecting in the chat. That's very good to see. As April is really good at what she does. She's really just a very wonderful person, and she has a lot of really cool aspirations, other ones that I'm also working with to try and like feed a lot of people and make sure the good things are happening in the world. She's a very good person, and she really is trying to do a lot to help the world. So definitely hit her up. Have either of you done CE5 meditation technique from Stephen Greer? I have not, because I have some doubts about him in general. The CE5 meditation technique by Stephen Greer is based on Monroe technology entirely. It is entirely based off of that. The only thing that he adds into that is he basically has his own guidances of using his own kind of systems of getting you into that deeper level of focus. And then basically he layers like some shooting lights up at the sky with that, which is actually just another way of getting more focus onto it as well. And really all of it's completely based off of Monroe technology. It seems so much that, I mean, his claims and the claims of other people is that he's actually attracted crafts for over 1,000 people. And he definitely has studied his shit, and he seems to be a legit guy. It's really mostly based around the Monroe technology, though. Focusing a lot has really interesting effects.
So, I haven't had my own experiences with it, but I agree with everything Zach said.
Stephen Greer is a pretty good guy. Like, if you take the time to listen to his shit, if you have doubts, which you shouldn't do something about somebody if you have doubts, he has a lot of content up there. Take the time to listen to him. Take the time to see what he has to say. And, you know, if you still have doubts about him, then don't listen to his shit. You don't do his shit. You know, but his meditation technique is definitely loosely based around Monroe technology, which I can say from personal experience is basically the coolest thing in existence in the human consciousness. So, like, I teach the Monroe technique. I teach focus levels like this. You don't have to just contact aliens. You can also contact whatever you want, literally whatever you want. Pick whatever you want. If you would like to go back a couple episodes, we connected with a slug. Do the meditation with it. If you do not actually experience yourself engaging with the slug, you probably just weren't focusing hard enough yet. But we can help you with that. Just ask questions. Ask lots of questions about who you listen to and what you can learn from a situation, you know? So if you have tons of questions, ask them in here. We got lots of answers for stuff.
Yeah, we do. We have lots of opinions, that's for sure. And answers. We have good answers. We certainly have lots of opinions, but they seem to be pretty functional for our own lives, so why not spread it around?
Worked for me, it will work for someone else who actually uses it. It might not be the perfect thing for you, but
yeah, when both of us know, we're happy to have you take some little thing we said or shared, and you do make your totally own thing. The point is that we'll find what works for you. So if there's something that sparks the idea in you, that's the whole point.
Absolutely.
And then also with wanting to help, where Zach was saying, so this is how I just kind of hold myself in those dynamics. So any part of a group I'm in that I'm a part of, I'm committed to, or I care about, or something I'm into, I'm just always aware of and looking for opportunities where there's a place I can come into harmonic resonance and help. So whether it's some natural thing I do, it's an overflow in a sense, or some place where I feel like I can do this thing one time or in a way that I don't mind going out of my way to do this, but whatever feels resonant in the way you can help. And a lot of times the openings will happen. So you don't have to necessarily look for it, or like it'll just happen when you know something we say will resonate. So I'm like, oh, I could do that, or I could make that connection, or I could whatever. Like it'll just come up. So it's the communal attitude. I mean, all just helping each other when those things arise, being looking for those things in a sense. So here's some. Want to hear some more Carl Jung quotes?
Big fan of Carl Jung. Can never hear enough Carl Jung.
And so he just said what we just talked about. So he said it all depends on how we look at things and not how they are in themselves. 100%. Shame is a soul-eating emotion. What are your thoughts on shame?
I mean, you don't need it, that's for sure. But I think we definitely are inclined to hold it until we have basically forgiven ourselves. So, it's out there. That's for sure. To bypass it in any way is not good, and you can't really blame someone for being in shame. We look back on things and have a better idea of what we could have done to do different things. And a lot of times inside of that space, shame grows, and sometimes shame grows there unconsciously. So
it's interesting because sorry, go ahead.
Sometimes we care about something more than we thought we cared about something, really, when it comes to like the effects that it has on us over time. And you can definitely get shame that grows inside of those kinds of places where you just really didn't see it, at least in my life, really see it coming from, it's not like a really, it's like an indirect trauma almost, you know what I mean?
Yeah, it's interesting. So him even saying it's a soul-eating emotion. So the way I see shame's like or I've experienced shame in my own life and the way I see it and interact with it at different times. Because shame in and of itself doesn't seem to help anything. Shame seems to be like a shroud that comes in and only allows you to see a limited number of perspectives that keep you locked in some kind of negative habit pattern that is not helping you actually get out of the thing or the incoherence that you have that may be causing this level or allowing this shame in. Religions can do that, belief systems, but just about ourselves. We feel we're behaving in a way that we don't know how to reconcile internally, or some form of we feel like we're not operating authenticity. That's a struggle in and of itself. We don't need also shame coming in and saying, yeah, you are shit. You are like whatever that, the shit, it just doesn't help. So to me, shame has no place in anyone's reality. It has no place in my reality. I can deal with my own issues and mistakes or things where I'm being incoherent or struggling with shit without shame. Fucking for sure. It only makes things worse in my experience. So
yeah,
that's my 2 cents on shame. So I totally agree. Soul eating emotion, and it's interesting. It calls it an emotion too, because it can totally eat into not just a thought. Well, maybe you really fucked up here, and you made a real dumb decision, like, oh shit, yeah, I did, or whatever. That, or really coming to grips with shit is different than shame coming in and adding an emotional, physiological effect to the body that's beyond stress or anxiety. It's just bullshit. It's this construct that's bullshit.
Yeah, I really don't think it's helpful. When you're in the grips of it, though, I have definitely found in my own work, like just being like, oh no, that's no good. Like just stop. That does not solve it. That's not going to help you. Just stop. So yeah, you do have to engage with what the issue actually is that you are shaming yourself over, and basically find a way that, well, like I said, like you forgive yourself for whatever it is that was done there, because at the end of the day, there's nothing you can do about it now.
Well, and so here's a recent example. So I don't deal with this emotion that often. So when it happens, it's obviously very, very prevalent. And I'm still trying to find coherence with the job that I work now, and I've worked for 10 years as a family business and all those dynamics, and I'm pushing shit off till the end of the month. And then I just feel this weight of guilt and shame, because not only I'm pushing the work off like really till I should. I know that my boss wants that done before like the 25th of every month. And it's not coherent or authentic with me wanting to do well at whatever I've committed to do. This job pays me well. I want to do the job well. And so there's just massive guilt and shame, and having to energetically sift through that and deal with, and then also talk to my boss about it. Like, look, this is me. My heart hasn't been in it. You know that. We've had conversations. I'm really sorry I put it off till the end. Can you actually help me do a few accounts? Just having to humble myself to deal with it. It's my choices. It's my behavior. But what I choose not to receive is shame for it. I will choose other levels of going around and trying to fix my problems, and, talking about where I'm not doing well and try to work with that, but also knowing the conflict in that. It's not because I'm a bad person, I'm not doing my job well. It's because my soul's not in it, man. And it used to be. I used to find beautiful time in that. I would listen to stuff all day. So I was getting work done. I was expanding my soul. And I'm at a place where it just doesn't serve that purpose anymore. So I'm having to walk this out over time, months, and so to find a balance so that I'm not dealing with shame looking to get in at that moment when it knows that I'm really weak, or I've put myself in a decision because of my choices where now I feel like I don't know how to be authentic. I'm going to hurt somebody, or I'm going to make myself look really shitty, and I am behaving shitty, like all that shit,
Yeah, I think a lot of it comes down to, for forgiveness and for avoiding shame, is just like acceptance. If you get really good at accepting, like, this is who I am, you know what I mean?
Then you have to, this is who I am right now. These are the choices I made. This is where I am right now. Own up to all that shit, and then bring it all to the light, whatever that means to you in your own life or whatever, and then make choices from there. But at least all the shit's on the table. May hurt, may feel like shit. At least it's on the table, man. Then you can actually do something with it. When you have all these like components and parts that you're trying not to look at the same time, I mean, that's where it just gets darker and darker and more complicated.
Yeah, no doubt. I don't know. I found that there's so many layers to accepting things in yourself. Like there really is kind of that, like you're just not ready to accept that you're doing that or experiencing that. Though too, you kind of, it's like very much so like an onion. Like you got to peel back layers of it sometimes, especially if you're dealing with people who have like a lot of, it started a long time ago, and then this thing also happened, and then this thing also happened, then this thing, and they haven't really been doing anything through that. These things, they very much so like start to build on each other. So when you're first engaging with someone who hasn't been working on themselves or working on dealing with these in an effective way in their life, there's often like you could find stuff right away, but they're not really ready to work on that thing yet. Like you gotta do this other stuff. Like that's not gonna work.
Well, and that's where I
So
think you do this too and work with people. It's finding the most efficient route to the greatest amount of healing or benefit, right? So there's obviously, like you said, there's times that they're just not ready to deal with something. There's no way you can go about it. But it's also to see, okay, I think this thing they're not ready with, but maybe now that I'm aware of it, as we're continuing to interact, maybe there's creative ways that actually we can come approach that from an angle they might be ready to deal with it,
mhm.
and always trying to dig to the root, not just the fruit, not just the bad behaviors or the behaviors that they don't like or aren't in coherence with them. It's okay, where's the root of those cycles, because they're patterns and cycles. You're not just the way you are because you just are. You're your conglomeration of your choices and your experiences. So change your choices, change your experiences, and you can change yourself as a person.
Yeah. Yeah, like April's saying here, that in this situation, shame's helping you see that the job's not fulfilling you. I think it's very helpful to approach your shame in that kind of way where you're like,
Yeah.
okay, so like, yeah, I might feel like shit about it, but what's the positive that it's bringing to me? There's some kind of positive
Yeah.
space around its massive negativity, you know what I mean?
Totally.
And really, if you focus on like, okay, there's a lot of fucking negativity there, but like, and this feels really oppressive, but like, where's the fucking light? Inside, there's got to be something good about this. Like sometimes even just like one good thing, you're like, okay, I mean, fine,
No doubt.
it's making me stronger, good enough. Just like I just don't want to really be in that shame space, so like this is making me stronger.
Yeah.
You gotta look for that piece of light, for sure. That's weird. Like in a certain way, Bob was talking about that vision that he had with the monks and stuff, and being in. When was that, last night?
Yeah, chained up as a kid monk, and then the
He was
bowls.
chained up as a monk, and he was like basically had a bowl that was assigned to him, and he was producing a substance that was going in the bowl, and then the people that were his captors were going to take it away. But instead, he basically escaped from this. But when he did the escape, he escaped from this thing where you're like grabbing onto basically like a rope and then swinging through the wall. And in a certain way, I feel like you could take that entire metaphor and say it like this process of being enslaved and all that shit. You could say it, that whole part of that metaphor is shame, and the finding the one thread that's going to allow you to swing through the wall of what basically that prison is this idea of finding just that one single thing that's like, okay, well, this can get me out of here,
Yeah, 100%. Beautiful. Way to tie in the recent dream or meditation experience. It's awesome.
Yeah. Nice.
Well
it's
done,
something
sir.
about like dreams, like if we're talking about dreams, like I don't forget anything about it. It's so weird. You would think I was like some kind of supercomputer taking notes the whole time. It's so weird. Like I don't even know how I do it.
Like the notes you sent me from your experiences, like what, a couple hours ago, right before the show, right?
Oh yeah, I mean that meditation was really fresh in
awesome.
my mind. It was a weird one too because like every step, it was like I had to like logically do it, but then I was intuitively driven to do something, but then I had to logically do it, but then I was intuitively driven to do something. And after this big old long process, all of a sudden it was like, haha, like there was like this haha moment at the end of it, which was really funny to me because I was just like, that's like you got me. I literally didn't know I was making the thing that I walked through in order, like in this. I had no idea I was doing that. So it was it definitely very much got me with like the rabbit in the hat situation, so that was very clever and that was enjoyable. I definitely came out of that one with a smile.
And the way you detailed it out too, like I totally get, as you're detailing that out, I'm like, oh yeah, I get it, man. Like if I really wanted to detail out like visions and stuff, really like be novels in each vision, because even as you tune into it, there's just the details that come and the nuances and like just that whole progression, something about articulating it into the language that you speak, written or spoken.
If people in the chat, since we're talking this thing up, like, I mean, April's already heard it, and Jen's already heard it, and Aaron's already heard it. But if you other people want to hear this right up the idea of this meditation I had today, I would be more than happy to share it with you. It was a quite visual experience with weird geometries and stuff, and so it's pretty interesting. But if you're interested in that, I'd happily read it. Just say so in the chat. And yeah, then that's a thing that we'll do. Because I don't know what we're doing right now anymore. Yeah. To go back to like the Greer CE5 thing, like even if you're not doing specifically his thing, the idea of like really like you could even just not meditating, listen to kind of like what a person's meditation is. This is the thing that I do a lot of times if I'm like kind of, I don't know about that person, right? I'll listen to their meditation, but like while I'm actively doing something. So I'm not like meditating to it. I'm not like following it. I'm just really like discerning what it's about and see what really is inside of it that is like, what's their function that they're using, like what are they doing here, and you kind of like pick it apart more logically, and then see if maybe you can't figure out your own guided version of that's functionally the same, you know. And so then you're not really doing their shit, you're doing your own shit. So I think that's been helpful for me. I don't really like doing other people's stuff. Well, I've liked it more in recent times. I've allowed other people to help me a lot more in recent times, and it's been a really good idea. But
well, I love the multi-threading because I really enjoy the way other people do things. Like I just enjoy their own unique perspective, their own, especially like Claudia's stuff was great. I was a 4-hour class with her before the show. And I mean that's an amazing thing for a human being to do. She puts together material enough to be live with people, 33 people I think she said were in there. That whole night was amazing. But for 4 hours, man, consistent engagement with the people and material and instruction and personal direction and guidance, and like, so she's got her own ways that she's come up with things and phrases that are just super unique and awesome and great, you know. And even when she's doing the meditation, like multi-threading my own, you know, tons of my own interactions during that meditation, but also enjoying the way that she structures that whole energetic engagement, you know.
Yeah, I mean, she takes her platform really serious. Like I really admire what she does with her platform. She puts a lot of work into it on all angles. Even like the idea, like we were going to be doing like these starseed connections on Sunday, but then like I had just come up with the idea of Sunday, and she was like, "Nope, that's the day that I rest and take to myself." And I was like, "Wow, like self-care plus plus." Okay, I mean, like, you want to do it some other day, or should I just do it without you?
Well, I was thinking it'd be interesting. I mean, we'd have to, unless you know people too, because I know it was just obviously how great it was. We all resonated with the Arcturian dynamic. So to have, you know, a bunch of us on there had our own experiences and just interconnections. It'd be cool to get someone who is really connected to their thing or whatever. They're really connected to the Pleiadians, or really, but in a way that could be similar to the dynamic we just had. You know.
Yeah.
So. Yeah.
She's really into Lyra too. That's like her actual current jam right now is
I would love to do that one with her. Let's do it at a random time during the week whenever she's available. Let's make that happen. That'd be awesome.
Yeah. I've been trying to contact with her, but I didn't.
I had a big connection with the Lyrans this last few years I've had a beard. And I shaved a beard this summer, but I mean, like, you know, like a big beard, like a 3-year beard gone. And I mean, a lot of the staring in the mirror times, even sober or whatever, just like really, and seeing the lion and the Lyran DNA overlays and like really interesting, just beautiful experiences. But lots of time pondering about that. A lot of time searching through hundreds, if not thousands, like Pinterest pictures of Lyrans or Lyran artwork or whatever that kind of, you know, intuitively connects to, clicking through. I mean, just massively creating internal connection and resonance with it. So yeah, I would love to hop on that train again.
Yeah, it's interesting connecting with any of these things. Like, you never really know what's going to happen, and if you do it in the right way, it's not going to be a bad thing. It'll just be interesting. So it's fun to explore.
We also have people in here, several people saying that they to read it. Well, Jim wants you to read it, please. Kyle said, "I'd love that." Yeah, we have more than enough people want you to read. I want you to read it. Read your shit, Jack.
Okay, I'll read it. So this was actually a really short meditation, but I should note ahead of time with that I had a wonderful session of healing earlier in the day, and I was already like pretty meditative, and I'm pretty good at like getting into pretty deep focus states. But nevertheless, it was pretty short, but it was pretty long. So it was pretty weird. So nevertheless, what I wrote that I just kind of like my own journaling of it was, and I mean, if you want to really like get kind of the full value of it, maybe like kind of meditate yourself and try and visualize the same things that I wrote. I mean, I'm pretty descriptive about it, but it's just a description that makes sense to me. But maybe you could follow along. So, holy shit, what the hell was that? Haha. I don't even really know what I was just intuitively drawn to make. I was at first walking through a void space, or at least it felt like walking. So I looked down and saw I was walking in a very shallow purple liquid, very dark, as was the whole space. When I would step, I could not see my feet, but the liquid would light up white, like a bright light, in a circular pattern, and from each foot a filament of light would go racing off in front of me as if directing me somewhere. They would carry out straight from me, but then start twisting together as they got farther away. I continued to follow them for a bit, and suddenly a white ring kind of emerged into space with the opening of the ring facing me. It was a bunch of single points of light forming a ring at first, but the ring started to spin around clockwise, and the single points kind of blurred into a complete shape, and I was drawn to walk through, which I did so excitedly. Once stepping through this, or a bit more like jumping, I felt like I was floating basically, but I was still moving as if I was in a body. I explored why I was like this and realized quickly it was simply because the feeling of the floating and moving through it as if in a body felt good, and I was willing to exchange kind of the efficiency of moving via another method or doing what I was doing from a wider perspective just because it felt good. After realizing this, I looked back at the ring and kind of swam my way up above the ring to the right in line with the side of it. When I got to this position, I saw it spinning for a second, but then it kind of faded and I saw two filaments of light again. This time, they were heading directly at each other, like this on the screen. And I lost my place. They were heading directly at each other, spiraling 5 times around each other, like this. And then they were taking 2 90-degree turns after they would spiral, and then they were heading right back at each other. Then taking 2 90-degree turns to be facing at each other again, and then headed towards each other and spiraled around each other 5 times again, repeating this over and over until this had built out of it a whole new ring. It was, and this is, I'm interjecting this, it was basically building this like a ladder, but as it did it, this ladder basically spanned over my perspective and ended up basically turning into a ring. I ended up objective to this ring and had an intuitive urge to create a chain of these rings, so I started purposely, with logical focus, designing another one. Upon finishing this one, though, I was not inclined to put them into a chain, but rather to put one ring. Hang on, my dog's dying. Just 1 second. Just 1 second. Okay. Upon finishing this one, though, I was not inclined to put them into a chain, but rather to put one ring inside of the other one on the x-axis and one on the y-axis. Basically, so they were kind of like this, right? If that makes sense. Once I placed them in this orientation, I spun them, and it was a very pleasing image, seeing the 2 rings spinning upon themselves, one vertically and one horizontally. This enticed me to add the same orientation again, only on the diagonal. So I set about creating 2 more rings and installing them to this machine so that there was 4 total planes in the object, all spinning simultaneously. Upon watching the spin for a moment, I started to snapshot the object to inspect it more and came to realize that functionally it modeled a perfectly symmetrical atom that had a full valence shell of electrons, being as the object had 8 external points that could be seen in any snapshot where 2 planes were not directly aligned. I noticed this 2-4-8 pattern at this time and immediately realized I could also have the planes that were operating inverse to these planes in the same object and have a spin offset that didn't have any 2 planes overlapping at any time, which would render this an 8-dimensional object functionally, as there was 2 planes on each of the north, northeast, east, southeast, south, southwest, west, and northwest alignments, and each plane was traveling in an opposite direction. So I set about designing and installing 4 more rings and running them in this fashion. It took only a moment of running it like this that I then realized that this obviously could double again by making the 2 rings on each plane functionally go both directions each. When I realized this, I recognized I was engaged in a fool's errand because I could do this over and over, adding more complexity to this through the same function of doubling. Upon realizing this, I was seemingly pushed back from the spinning object that I had basically identified as an atom or some kind of superparticle at this point. I was pushed back quite far. It felt like maybe 50 feet, and when I got there, I felt the clicking of many perspectives coming together, as I realized the single spinning object I had created was now but one point of light in an array of spinning objects that formed a ring, which was the first ring I had walked through. Feeling fully satiated from this little excursion, I chose to walk through the ring and functionally out of focus/meditation so that I could write down what happened as effectively as possible. So that was the whole of the thing. I still really enjoyed it. I dug into it more with April and kind of analyzed some ways that maybe really, in certain ways, it is aligned to a session that we did today, where I'm kind of like restructuring some things of myself and collecting some of what you could call parts of my soul that have fragmented into other parts of my life based off of things that have happened to me. And I think there's a very good chance that that is a situation that's going on. I think very much so in a certain way. It's kind of like a unity experience where I'm being shown that like the thing that I'm creating is basically what I am, and what I am is creating another thing, right? Then so this eventually ends up infinitely seeded like that. So yeah, if you have any questions or comments, I'd love to hear them. That's the whole of it, though. I'm actually going to take a quick break to get a drink and some other stuff like that. Aaron might pop back in here. I'm going to... No, I think Aaron will be back quite quickly. So, no, I'm going to turn on some light music, actually, while I go AFK. We'll take a little break. We'll probably come back and talk more, because if I stop doing this, I don't really know what else I would be doing. So if you guys have anything you want to talk about, I'd really like to talk about something. But I'm going to take a short break so that I can get something to drink. I love you all. Be back soon.
The tale of Jiraiya the Gallant. I guess this is the end. Looking back, my life has been nothing but failure. The tale of Jiraiya the Gallant. It's finished.
お前はなんでこんなことをするんだ俺に問う。その理由をお前に話したところで何も変わりはしない。だがもう一度ゆっくり話をする。
お前と話すことなんてない。
俺の目的はジライア先生の成し得なかったことだ。さっき言った。
All right, I'm kind of back. Aaron's not back yet, but I think that's pretty damn cool, Kala, that you followed along with that. I must say, like it's cool to be able to like share experiences with other people that actually want to hear them enough that they would actually like to do something in their life for that. It feels good. It was a very, very cool experience for me, so I'm very happy to share it. Sex magic. Well, that's got a lot of angles. So, yeah, there's a lot to say about sex magic. I mean, the entire idea of Kama Tantra is a very interesting and powerful force. I mean, obviously, when we're engaging in any kind of sex, we're engaging in something that has the ability to create life. And with that, sex, as far as humans go and the human dimension, is definitely one of like the strongest things that we can possibly engage with. It should also be noted that it is also one of the things that people engage with the most unconsciously, which if you spent time studying things like Kama Tantra, are really, I mean, there's a lot of different ways that you could go about this that would kind of entice you to maybe not do the whole sex thing too liberally. There's a lot of energetic transmission that takes place inside of really not even way before the sex happens. Like the whole concept that there was a spark that we felt between us, right? What the fuck does that mean? Like that's a weird thing to say in a certain way when we understand ourselves as basically energetic beings functionally. We can like if we get really basic about it, we can understand ourselves as functionally a wire. And so we have two wires next to each other, and there's a spark that we feel between us. This is obviously like if this happens to something, then you're having some type of energetic connection here. Well, the more that, you could kind of think of it as that, like that first little feeling that you get right there when you catch somebody else's eye and a single spark flies, that happens from like, this far away. But as you get closer and closer to actually engaging in sex and subsequently doing it, you're literally getting into a place where you're bringing your bodies through physical action into direct coherence to come into basically the highest level of information sharing that you can do inside of a physical body. I felt like some sexual connections this life tied up some karmic loose ends. The entire idea of Kama healing is using the process of sex to either heal karmic traumas that are transgenerational or inside of your current life right now. Any type of basically sexual traumas, especially in the current life, can be heavily affected through what is understood as Kama healing. Recognize that Kama healing is functionally a format of sex magic. It's like the good witch and the bad witch, right? With the good witch, we call it healing. With the bad witch, we call it cursing, or blessings and curses. Same thing. So functionally, usually when we are drawn to someone and we want to actually have sex with them, it's because they actually have some type of energy inside of their vessel that functionally we want to assimilate with so that we can copy it into our own vessel. Or we are trying to actually make a copy of our vessel. This is actually at a certain level the point of copulation, is to bring multiple things together to try and copy themselves functionally. You could think of it that way. So when we're trying to do these kinds of things, now sex magic is very much so about intention, but it's also very much so, well, the whole part that you like about sex, the orgasm, is not actually something that you should be shooting after with sex magic. You should actually be shooting after not doing that until you have spent a significant amount of time putting a very focused intention towards some kind of creation that you're trying to generate. And, on the lowest level, the child that you're consciously bringing into being. So you spend a long time doing that, and then maybe you get to release. Right? Now, in all formats of sex magic, you could argue on a certain level that you could utilize sex magic to basically increase your own personal energy, or you could understand as like your Ignis, you would have to be able to temper this. Oftentimes, if people were having sex and not coming to full fruition with it, and then they stopped, they would feel very like tense, frustrated, stressed. This is a lot of extra energy built up in the vessel that has a drive to get out. You can focus that into specific things. So sometimes the idea of purposely having sex to not release can be good to gain energy, or otherwise known as ignis inside a lot of other kinds of magic, to basically add the drive to some other kind of reaction that you're trying to generate. Women actually do keep part of the DNA. Don't remember what the term is. I have seen some papers about this, that they functionally do keep the DNA. And so on the woman level too, I think even maybe scientifically more so, if we're talking about actually biological material, women need to be even a little bit more worried about this or careful with it than men do. Because, I mean, if we think about it on another level, you have the thing that keeps the thing inside of you, or then the, like, creates it. Like, you're literally built, like you're basically like a catcher's mitt for this, right? Like, it's supposed to keep it. Basically, the other thing that comes in is the thing that's supposed to be kept. So even on that level, the transmission of basically male to female energy inside of, well, what you could understand as sex magic on the physiological level is very much so a from the male to the female transmission. And really, like, kind of typically, when if this was being used to gain some type of divination, looks into deeper places in consciousness to develop belief systems that go beyond the scope of the belief constructs, what they were functionally doing was really actually trying to get the woman to that level, right? You continually press the energy into her, and the whole idea is that in the lower chakra, she is copulating all of this energy that is being shared between two people and being built through their feedback, and then that is constantly being raised up the chakras to eventually get to her mind. So, because really, we talked about this on a different podcast recently, why women have a tendency to have better visions. Women tend to have better vision. So if you're trying to see beyond, it's really better for the man to reserve his orgasm, and the woman to basically reserve her orgasm too, but to continue to engage and purposely cycle that energy up the chakras. And if you're doing it in terms of healing, you can purposely cycle that energy to the chakra that you're trying to work with, to, in, well, I mean, in some kind of broad strokes, some people just say getting it there can help it. But I think there is definitely always balance in everything, and you can definitely over amp a chakra or have it spinning too fast, because it's really all about balance. If your heart chakra is not spinning very fast and your third eye chakra is, there's issues that happen because of that. If you have a balance throughout the whole system, it's pretty good. So inside of sex magic, one very common way of doing it is, and you'll see this in some of basically the images that come out of it, where basically they'll have usually like a man sitting, you know, like with his legs out in front of him, and the woman's on top of him with her legs out basically behind the man in front of her. And then they'll draw some type of kind of energetic transmission that's going between them. This is kind of an idea of cycling the energy between them to bring them into further entanglement or further coherence, or just go through this consistent data sharing process that's happening very mindfully, where basically the man is putting out his energy that he has in his lower chakra. The woman is collecting it, rising it up to her mind, and then functionally in that conscious space, she's sharing it back to the man, who then cycles it down through his chakras and places it back into the woman. She goes and collects the data. She gives it to the logical man, and he brings it down, and then he gives that information back to her, and she intuitively raises it back up, and it goes through this cyclical system. If you're doing this, you do have the ability to get to focus states and gnosis states that are beyond the function of a single person. You can also tap into anything that you want. It's like I talk about the Monroe focus levels. There's a reason for that, because really at the end of the day, all these things can be broken down to focus. This is a way of getting very, very deep levels of focus, because realistically, even to use it, you already have to be a pretty disciplined individual. As you have probably met with some of the men in your life, having sex for like 4 hours, purposely cycling energy, not in a playbook. So anyways, any other questions, I'd be happy to answer them. Been studying kama stuff, sex magic, all this stuff for a very, very long time, just because it is a very powerful level of magic or interfacing with consciousness. And I find it very interesting. Super rant. Hi, Aaron. Got thoughts on sex magic? We're talking about boners.
Yeah, that was great. Do you think actually? So yeah, there's lots of things we can talk about there. But what a question based on what you're saying. So do you think there's any ethical dynamic, or is it when if you engage a sexual act like that to gain focus levels that may not ultimately have anything to do with the other person? It's just an amoral engagement that so I can go to places on my own focus levels I have a harder time doing alone, and it feels good without some kind of like emotional relational connection.
I think ethics is a question that only comes into the question if someone starts to question ethics, basically, to answer that. So I personally take an extremely ethical approach to this, but technically someone could just be the opposite of me. There is definitely the function of someone who's effectively a parasitic vampire and will use any form of magic or control that they can use to try and get ahead. This is a thing that happens. So you don't have to be ethical about it. I think if really this is kind of like we can go back to the old thing. The best magician is the smartest person in the room. But like as long as a person is knowledgeable enough about what's going on, then they're also getting their own, like kind of in their own level, their benefit out of it. You know what I mean?
Totally.
Now, if you're doing it as a cohesive unit, then there's definitely ethics in it because you're making sure that both people are on the same page of what the cohesive unit is trying to do.
What would that conversation? What would that conversation look like, or how do you usually have those conversations to lay those ethics out for a mutual engagement?
Well, you're probably already engaging with this person in ways that you know that it's like a more spiritual type of interaction. You're interested in metaphysics and you're talking about heightened states of consciousness and stuff like that. Meditation has probably already come up. The idea of starting just meditations, non-sexual, just like in the same space, or not even doesn't have to be in the same physical space. Even in just like the idea of starting to meditate with someone, you're already starting to come into these coherent positions. And it's kind of like the idea that, you know, you probably shouldn't just like run up to a girl and kiss her right away, right? Like maybe like draw her eye contact first and then maybe come closer and then like talk to her and then maybe like shake her hand and then things progress and da 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 da. You can do the same exact conscious process with that. And, you know, basically, so the idea is start small, but you're already in a place where you're basically interfacing your consciousness together purposefully. And so it should, and at that point in time, it should functionally be just like an open dialogue that you're making a practice of like, here's kind of the things that we're focused on with our mind and what we're trying to do in order to generate those states working as a cohesive unit. So directly what the thing looks like is really getting real about like what people are really actually trying to accomplish in their life and being authentic about what it is that you're really trying to accomplish in your life so that this energy can be focused towards their sex can be used to generate kids that aren't actually children. I mean, like it can be a new idea or you know, anything. It can be a new anything if you're purposely focusing on that thing. And then it is literally just like if you get shared focus on shit happens, you know. So yeah, I mean, ethics. I personally believe someone should be ethical about it.
So setting mutually agreed upon ethical sex tensions. Like intentions.
Sex tensions, yeah. Yeah. Yeah,
you can create whatever you want, but you have some kind of awareness of like you're what the other person's also creating. You're honoring that. You're helping them create what they want to create. Sure. You know, and some level of that engagement while you have your own open dialogue before you have your own things you're creating. You want to create.
Yeah. And in a certain way, if you're engaging with a person on this level, like consciously, you gotta know that like you're engaging with both their good and their bad. Right? Like especially when you get to the level of sex. So you through the process of having sex with someone else or engaging in sex magic with a partner, which I will after this talk about sex magic without a partner because that's a very interesting concept as well. But if you're engaging with that, know that you're engaging in like a super high density energy sharing environment. Like it's all coming. Like the likelihood that you're gonna keep their bad stuff away just to get their good stuff, it ain't good. Like it's a low probability. So, but like,
so how do you engage that? How do knowing that's coming or in that way, in a way that you can't necessarily quite predict until it happens, but you can know the energy's there, or that awareness that reality will happen once there's that engagement. How do you interact?
I think again, this comes down to like the idea of the Western mind. The Western mind wants to have sex way too early in a relationship.
Totally.
They don't take the time 100%. To get to know each other, They don't get the time to like. I need to understand what your dynamic with your parents was like, what your mission is here on the world, how you approach yourself, what you do to actually deal with the day-to-day things that arise in your life before I can make an accurate assessment of whether or not I want to engage in a full energetic sharing with you. So I should like wait fucking longer and do more research, really, you know?
Right.
Like the whole
Well,
idea of going to the bar and picking up a girl and having sex with her that night, that's not a good idea for either of you. I understand it's
for
fun.
nobody.
I've done it too. I get it. Like I'm not judging you. I'm saying that like that has fucking consequences. You're probably not weighing.
Yeah. Well, it's like, and here's the thing, to be before reading that, so like on that dynamic too, at times in our lives, based on our upbringing, whatever, the random person at the bar could have been really a tremendously healing thing for you, where you were at in your life path or whatever, or the best healing option you had at the time because of life circumstances. Now we're older, we have more awareness and choice over engagements and like worldview for one, right? And awareness and desire to keep our energetic system in a way that's in balance for us, so that you want to find someone else that will help you amplify that balance, not put you necessarily out of balance. And there's some imbalance in the dynamic and relationship building in positive and negative ways or whatever. But when you leave that exchange, there's greater balance for the ways both of you want for yourselves and for the other person, because you care about the other person. You know, it's still a person that you someone you very much enjoy. I mean, at the very least.
Yeah, and let's be really clear, at least with my stance. Like, you know, having a relationship with someone isn't about like finding a person who's already perfect and sharing your perfect self with them. It's about you being with someone else. Like literally, right? And you're either going to choose to be able to deal with the things that they do in their life, and they're going to be able to do that with you, or that's not going to be the case, you know? So that just has different dimensionalities. In most recent situations, I feel like it's communication about intention for individual goals, children, projects, bridging DNA sequencing, honoring self, and them, and the multi-levels. Yeah, exactly. Like 100%. Like because you're covering it really like as far as like individual goals, children, and then we're all the way over here to like multiples levels and honoring self, DNA sequence. Like on all levels, like have a really open dialogue about what am I really trying to do with my life on all levels, for sure. Yeah, there's like I don't know. I look at my old self and I just can't really understand how I really looked at like sex as a sine qua non of a relationship. Like my mindset was.
Whoa. I know I could get it contextually, but that is something I've never heard. Please break that down. What did you just say? What's that phrase?
The sine qua non is basically like the upper echelon, the most perfected version of it, right? Like the very top. Well, this whole that sine qua non, right? Like the non is like nothing, right? The idea is it's equal to nothing, right? So it's the highest version of something, right? I used to think the most like if you had sex with a girl, that you'd reach the top level of what the relationship could really be with the girl, right? Like like you could get married and you could have kids and stuff like that, but like really like the relationship was now at maximum volume. Yeah. But I just really don't personally believe that anymore, and I really think that like sex is a thing that like it comes along if the relationship gets to a high enough volume, but the volume's not really actually increased by the sex anyways. You know? So I don't know.
It's really interesting that you say it that way too, because I inside of a physical dynamic, so in the inverse or converse, maybe inverse.
Converse make good shoes though.
I know, I never liked them. They're just that thin canvas. It just never did it for me, man.
A lot of people like them. A lot of sales.
Yeah. But I was inside of a dynamic in my marriage where I couldn't engage in that way, though my soul was more than ready. Like every time she opened up her soul or her heart to me, even a little, right? I met her in the biggest ways for her. That's where I found depth in me. It's like, oh, that was the biggest for her. Like I go way deeper than that, and just trying to find contrast and then going into those depths and always meeting her where she's at, but then allowing myself to explore the other depths of that again, while leading into the other topic of while cycling my own energy, not masturbating, not looking at pornography, not talking to any other people, really, not just girls, but like just really, it was super internal. And like, I mean, honestly, part of me being this way, I don't know if I'll always be this way, this really could be 10 years of repressed. Aaron can't express himself because he only gets to share 20% at best of a perspective before he's shut down hard. And so I have to internalize all of it really for a decade, man.
We'll just start managing it. If you start like changing, we'll just start interrupting you in the middle of what you're saying. Just 20% is just like, no, Aaron, shut up.
And watch the trauma come back. Watch you do it, right? 20% intuitively or synchronistically, right? And then you just watch this trauma layer come back. Like, oh, okay, thanks. Let me get rid of that.
Yeah.
But no, it's really interesting. So like, so yeah, so like, I feel like I learned in myself and in reflection of her and the ways I'd interact with her, and just, I don't know, a deeper understanding of myself and human condition in a lot of ways. It really does cross all cultures and breeds, just at core values levels of being met, of being seen, of being perceived, you know, being present with someone, and the deeper levels of the conversation and the dialogue and the things that come from there, the thought process, more than that, the own internal thought processes, right? From like living in that place. So then if you meet another that has done those similar things or exists in those similar ways, and there's the right resonance, and then those things can build and harmonize from there in a way that ideally in these circumstances is as deep and beautifully and awesome. We can dive into the technologies of sex magic, right, that are awesome. There's the very human side of it, of honoring someone deeply in the beginning, throughout, and at the end of a relationship, because emotions can get tricky, man. It's not, it's like, this is a lifestyle, or this adopting this lifestyle. Maybe, you know, a lot of people may be adapted to that, but fucking a lot aren't, man. It's taken a lot inside my own cognitive abilities to perceive an idea that could be healthy on all levels, energetically and in 3D. No traumas, no, you know, somebody just getting uncomfortable, whatever. It gets weird. The open communication all the way through. And this whole,
I think it's important to realize too, like if you don't like feel this way about sex, realize like maybe you're just focusing on your lower chakras, and like what you do need to do is go around and live like hedonistically and shit. Like for some people, that's where they're at.
Yeah,
That's
totally.
Cool. So
what I'm saying, each their own, wherever they're at. It's just interesting to contrast. This way you're laying that out. I'm just perceiving it. Did you look at my fire now that we got semi-break? You see my fire? It showed up.
Yeah, that's nice.
Isn't that cool, man? This is one of the first purchases I got when I got here, and I just never put it up till now. And I finally have a spot, and eventually I'll put the microscope there, maybe. But I don't know. Maybe this will be a thing. I'll have this like every show because the energy is
real fire.
Yeah, it's real fire.
Is it gonna melt your poster?
No, man. It's indoor. It's like this safe indoor only ventless fire ethanol that burns like clean oxygen or some shit. And they say we don't have enough to power cars. Come on.
Anyway. We're just burning it.
Yeah, and so we'll see how long it goes, but it just fills a little container in there, and once I put the fourth panel on, then it started to vortex. Oh, love that shit. Wow. Yeah, it's all real. It's all real.
You talked about like cycling energy in there, but it's like as opposed to using any kind of masturbation. And so, but I still like, do you feel like this is like a sex magic still in a certain way because it's like anti-sex, right? Like you're not engaging in sex at all, so it's non-sex magic, which is still a kind of sex magic.
Wow, that's like, to me, that's like mastery level sex magic. Like I don't gotta even touch myself. Like
void sex,
man.
Yeah. Void sex magic.
But also the benefit physiologically, like Montauk Chia has great videos and materials on how to actually, you know, for men to literally the techniques you can do to pull on the testicles and to massage the testicles daily, these different practices, ways that keep your energetic flow, the cerebral
I thought we said we weren't
your...
masturbating. Now you're talking about massaging testicles.
Right. So what I'm saying that the far end of the spectrum of like the ideal, I guess, is that when you don't have to touch yourself at all, but you can have the sensations in your vessel as if you were being touched, right? So great. But then, and it's not like I had that actually at all. It would just like, I would just cycle that energy and just put it into creating and expanding my consciousness, expanding my understanding, man. I got this email address fucking like 6-7 years ago or whatever.
And it was all because you just like took NoFap November super serious one year. That's why you
yeah. So anyway, interesting shit.
So, I mean, with that, I mean, like, it's really all about cycling energy and using basically the sexual function, whether it be through deprivation of it or activation of it, to generate lots of energy in the lower chakras. Like it is a reproductive chakra, and engagement with, well, engagement between two energetic systems generates energy. The chakras that is doing that in are dependent on the dimensionality of which the engagement is taking place. And so, for instance, if a girl is together with a guy and he cannot, like, for whatever the reasons are, she doesn't feel like he's physically capable. I'm not talking about like sex. I'm talking about like he can't fucking lift things. He always fucking breaks stuff, etc. like that. There's a really good chance that her root chakra will end up feeling out of balance in the relationship because she's having to feed a lot of root chakra to him in order to power him up to be in balance with her. And that will require her to put a shitload of work into her root chakra or basically get away from this thing. Because if you're in that deep, coherent relationship, you're like always sharing information on different levels. The idea can happen in any one of the chakras. Like if you're not, like, the thoughts that you're having, Aaron, experience this. He's not able to talk about the things that he's able to talk about. You end up having basically decoherence in whatever you can call them. If they're spiritual, like crown things, or if they're more cerebral, you're talking about like, mind things. But then also just being able to communicate things, you end up having decoherence in the throat chakras, And if there's too much decoherence in between the two chakras, chakra systems of the two things, which you can look at different dimensionalities of this, they break up. That's how it goes. You know what I mean? Like, if the chakras are equal to one another, they stay together. If they're not equal, then there's problems because something is having to carry more weight and thus perceive something is not carrying enough.
Or they don't, because there's codependency issues. But yeah.
Well, in a certain way, what we're talking about here is how, like, if you're doing this consciously, every relationship is a codependent relationship because you bring yourself into a space where you are conjugate, and now you are both dependent on the conjugate, basically. What is important to do with this is not to really run it by what we know as the normal terminology of codependence, where it's detrimental to the self, but operate as an interdependent interaction, where both people have responsibility for maintaining their own portions of the energetic system, and then they function together to try and enhance that function, knowing that neither side can actually go higher by virtue of this system unless everything brings up the average, because I'm just going to have to give it over to you if you don't come up with me. So they leverage each other up through interdependence rather than codependence, but still it's functionally a codependent situation.
So Maya Rose says, true sex magic is beyond personal, sacred union of heaven and earth, womb of creation, anchoring the highest into earth, humanity, and life. And I think, okay, so I think everything we're talking about, like, I could see how it could be seen as super mechanical. I mean, masculine, I totally get it. Like almost emotionless in a sense. It's not. I know you, Jake, and like I know our diet. Like it's not. We're not saying that. It's just like we're articulating the processes with which we're trying to lay out a function, right? But you can see, so like, and there's also a dynamic too, where I guess emotions can get trickier potentially, but those dynamics where you're completely in love with the other person on every level, right? Every level. There's balance on every level. There's a connection on levels that you ever, and through all the process you've talked to, there's been a lot of time engagement over length of time, depth of conversation, breadth of life of understanding them, the ups and downs and light and dark and whatever, just that you really come to that resonance with them, which can happen really, if you're in tune with yourself really well, and they are too, really these things can be magical and could probably happen. I mean, theoretically here, not that I've had one of these, but like on a weekend getaway, right, that it's perfect, beautiful harmonic resonance for both of you. That's the most magical, beautiful, healing, incredible, whatever weekend for both of you. And then you go different ways and you're both just better people for it. I think a lot of that has to do just with our internal balance and being in right alignment for with whatever person at the right time in the right ways. But then the other engagements of whether it's long-term relationship or whatever length of time the dynamics happen, where you're so completely in love with the other person. Like that, to me, adds a whole other level of energy and engagement and, creation that is wonderful.
Yeah, and with this, like, this sacred union of heaven and earth, womb of creation, anchoring the highest into earth, humanity, and life. Yeah, it's totally about that in both directions. That anchor has a chain attached to it, and you can climb up or down it through the vehicle of sex magic. You can bring stuff down from above and anchor it into the physical, or you can also project yourself out of the physical up at the anchor. Both of these are completely possible, but there's no such thing as one-way systems in this reality. That's a fucking myth. If you think there's one-way streets in this city, well, I mean, you just there's not. There's just not. So, this circulate energy until a full moon to bring in manifestations with or without a partner. Absolutely, following those natural cycles of creation that are already generating, it's all about cycles, right?
Yeah.
Like in a certain way, in terms of the function that we're moving inside of, whether it be like these ideas of time and doing things at the right time. If we get more into this with like the sex magic, we get into the idea of like the ancient Tsar cult, which used to use basically astrological high magic, which was basically their religious understanding of when powerful energies were passing through the nearby cosmos. And they would purposely use a very pure virgin and a completely no-name male, because they didn't really actually they wanted the male's DNA to not be of really any value, so that the spirit could overtake it. Then they would purposely hold ritual, like literally ran by priestesses and everything, where they had sex at this specific time in a room that was like purposely shaped to kind of channel a spirit like this in. And they would they would have this sex to try and have the copulation be at the exact moment that the spirit flew over, so that spirit basically saw this as like a beacon of like, ooh, that's an interesting womb to get into. And then that thing would leech onto that, go in there, and then basically now the new child would embody that higher specified energy. And through this, they believed that they could basically control the genius of people if it was done right. There was a whole lot of if it was done wrong going down, but at the same time, like, this is that anchoring, right? Like, this is the gods, right? Like the spiritual energy, you're saying sacred union, that's gods and earth, right? So this is 100% being like, we're gonna fucking there's a god, they called it spirit fishing basically, but at the same time, that's that anchoring, right? Like that's how you land a fish in a certain way, you anchor them to the shore. So for this requires deep connection with the person. Like if it's beyond personal, then technically it does not require connection with the person, because it's personal. You know what I'm saying? Like, it can't be both.
Right.
It can't require the other person and be personal. That doesn't really work. And also, in my own personal opinion, if we're really talking sacred union, since we're already on it, there's no such thing as beyond personal in sacred union. Sacred union is a position of complete unity where all things become one thing, and so personal is everything's business. So, like, we can say it's personal, but it's personal to the entirety of the cloud at the position of actual sacred union. That's when all things collapse into one. That's what a sacred unity is. So, like, I agree personal, sure, but on the level that I agree personal, I believe that I'm you also. So,
becoming one with another. Yeah.
And in a certain way, you're saying, like, requires deep connection with the person. I think that's the actual deep connection. I need to know, like, yo, I'm fucking you, and you're me, like, for real. Like, we're the same thing. Let's work together to be even more, like, that's the real deep connection. But like these, these personal things and like two things interacting and all that stuff starts to get real murky when we start talking about sacred union, real murky subject.
Yeah, it is. That's something we have to create a better world for, instead of fucking one night stands at bars. Figure out the murky situation so we can create an equation.
Yeah.
So we can help other people.
I mean, and in certain ways, like you could say, like, I guess there's clean ways of doing this. You can accept the fact that, like, yeah, I'm taking on some shit and I'm going to deal with it. And you got a modality that you do that through. And that's not necessarily a bad thing for you. Like, your life is probably going to have some rough stuff going on anyways. And your life is always just like what's happening right now, and then you deal with it, right? Like, so if you feel like you should have sex with someone, I think, like, basically you should do it. That's your heart saying, like, do it. Even if it's like, well, when we look at the calculation, actually it says here that you're not a perfect astrological match. And as a matter of fact, this person has not only 2 traumas associated to your father, but actually 4 traumas associated to fathers that you don't even know that you had. So not a good idea right here. Maybe you're supposed to engage with that person to unlock all of them things and look at them. Like, maybe that's what's supposed to happen.
That's just like the open communication.
Heart knows more than I do, that's for sure. That's one thing that I've learned.
I'll say, if you're single and like that makes sense, like, Even it's like even I was saying in high school, we are talking about too, like the Western mind. So I don't know where I got this not Western mind. It must just be my physiology or the whole increased corpus callosum shit.
Just read the
Like,
wrong books.
Well, yeah, it's in school growing up, and this is like as a teenager, it's definitely Western culture, everything. But that's all I want to do is I wanted to make out and cuddle, and that's cool. That's all I wanted to do. Didn't want to do more because it's so satiating, and it was all usually lots of conversation before that. That was very satiating, quality time and like connection on that level. You know. Anyway, yeah, it's just interesting, different dynamics.
Yeah, well, with what Call is saying, without a partner, you can do that one of two ways. You know, again, the deprivation or the activation, really. Like, but if you're activating, you don't want to be getting to release for a variety of reasons, both physiological and energetic.
Well, the Taoist practices, it's writing the orgasmic valleys, I think. So it's just as you approach orgasm, even by physically touching yourself or whatever, it's fine. It's more however you want to engage that at whatever point in your life you're at or whatever. Because there's lots of really interesting ways, man. There's lots of interesting shit with magnets. If you've never masturbated with magnets, Aaron Kessler recommends it because it's interesting, man. There's interesting energies with that shit, man. Really.
You heard it here first, ladies and gentlemen. Masturbate with magnets. You heard it here first.
Really?
Oh my gosh. You want to know about sex magic? This is the Teslian version of sex magic. You masturbate with magnets. Okay? You ever seen them ring magnets? You put your little thing inside of that and it gets supercharged and you fly to space. That's how it works.
There's a lot of ways to use magnets. You can make rings of multiple magnets, or there's really, but you get an actual like science of it and the physiology. It's a skin suit technology, right? And it feels great, right? But it's circulating energy in ways that you're not used to because you've never done it.
You know what we need to do in the long run, Aaron? We literally need to make a course from you about masturbation with magnets and just see if people will buy it.
All right. Yeah, we'll do it. Dude, we can do
Maybe they will.
Dude, we're just plowing out material, man. We have so much to work with. We'll eventually we'll do a few, or somebody will have a creative eye that we'll partner with, and then like be able to just find those moments and string them together out of nowhere, shit like that.
Yeah, the magnet masturbation manual.
All right, so hold on. I had more of a point in that. What was I saying slightly before that?
I think we were just talking about how there's a lot of ways to on the solo.
Yeah,
use the sex magic
when you're approaching orgasm, though. So a lot of it too is a conscious engagement of your bindis, think in yoga terms, but your pelvic muscles, your pelvic floor, your perineum, through your core. There's different ways with your focus of intention, cycling that energy. Like you have your tongue through the roof of your mouth too, and breathing through your nose does 35 things in your body that normally don't happen through your mouth. There's a lot of little
if you're crazy, rising cobra, mudra.
Okay. Yeah. Well, tell me that shit. So but that's like those are the more you do them, the less you think about them. They like settle into the subconscious, right? And so they just become things you do when you're stimulating yourself beyond just the action of focusing on, at least for guys, right? Well, I mean, growing up, I didn't know blue balls is a real thing. It's a buildup of bioelectric energy, like in the testicles, that's not getting circulated. And that a lot of it's because we're thought that we're supposed to hold it there until we find a release. I think we get this thought pattern, but like, no, you're supposed to cycle that shit, bro. But nobody told you. Nobody told me either, man. I just found out 2.5 years ago.
That's interesting too, because I never really had that issue, and I never, like, when I was younger, I didn't understand the idea that like I really wanted to get laid and then I didn't, and now I feel all weird. I didn't understand that. But when I was younger, before I was even sexually active, I got taught by somebody the idea of basically the Taoist alchemy form, where you're like Jian, Qi, and Shen, and that like if you ever feel like overwhelmed down here, you cycle that energy up to the place that you want it and stuff. And I never really actually drew a correlation between the two, that it was just like that kind of I was autonomously already cycling that energy out. Weird.
Yeah. Interesting.
Turns out Master George Zhu saved me from blue balls.
Right on, man. So like we all learn different ways, man. Different strokes for different folks. All gets to the same place.
I like how this is about masturbation. You just use the different strokes for different folks colloquialism.
Totally fits.
Some people like to stroke with magnets, it turns out. I just found out today. Today I learned.
Dude, I put that in there. That's fine. That needs to be amplified in the collective, man. People need to experiment with themselves in those ways. Like, it's awesome.
Magnets amplified. I like what you did there.
Oh yeah, that too. See? This is rolling off the tongue. Thank you. I had a little flower, I have a little distillate. It's nice, some nice mix. A little more towards the masculine, talking about how men cycle their energy. So if you're self-stimulating, now that I'm remembering the trail I was on, the point is not to get to the point where it's like, uh-oh, or like shit, too late, right? The mechanical actions are kicking in. There's a spasmodic reaction in the body, right? So check this shit out. However, for men, I don't know about for women, probably not because they don't have a prostate. So it's probably for men, but it's called the $1 million spot because the men used to pay like in old China or whatever, like 1,000,000 yen or some shit to learn this secret sex technique that we'll tell you now for free because it's all over the fucking internet. It's like right down in your perineum, so right between like your asshole and the bottom of your balls, like right there. So taint, like right in there or something. Perineum, really, I think technically, but trying to get a visual maybe in colloquial terms because that would make more sense to me. And you actually use 3 fingers like that for a visual.
Oh, it's an ancient Chinese secret. You learn here first.
And you press really firmly, right? And
really firmly.
After you hit that point, Norta, or right when you know you're going to hit it anyway, or even if you like intentionally, you can do this. You literally will retain the majority, like 90+% of the bioelectric fluids that you need back into the system. That's why it's a $1 million spot, man. And so it's like, oh man, now people are gonna masturbate more. It's like, well, whatever, man. If they figure that out, good for them. It's kind of tricky. But
I was not aware of this.
Cool.
It's measured that energy goes back in. Like somehow somebody measured that, or that's the sales tactic.
Dude, I just gave you the historical mythological pitch, and then I tried it myself. It seems to
can't be
work.
Historical and mythological at the same time.
Yeah, it can. Dude, did you know Greek mythology to us
is the mytho-history?
No, check this out. Do you know Greek mythology to us? In Greek, I remember somebody telling me this. Their cousin was in Greece, and they were there. They asked them about it or whatever, and they said that that's just history to them. That's not mythology. That's history to them. You know, it's perspective. It's symbol sets. It's belief of culture.
Interesting. I mean, it was a really long time ago that was happening, right? Not like there was something else going on the earth at all. But
no, nothing.
Yeah, it seems a little far-fetched. So, I don't know. Well, it's kind of like the idea of somebody, 2,000 years from now, they come across a copy of Transformers 4, and they're like, fuck, there was fucking robots there. Oh my God.
It's interesting. So I imagine you base your then historical worldview based. Well, you've done a lot of research and stuff too. It sounds like. So like for me, I found deep resonance, and you can say too, and this is also true, past life memory stuff and whatever, with going through the biblical timelines. That whether that was like real in the sense of things get pretty quantum outside a few generations, I think, because the actual memories, maybe thinking about it now, are no longer in the collective as strongly as they were when they actually existed. But like we were talking about NPCs, the dynamic, or you only create the reality in front of you. Once you close the door behind you, it uncreates that reality. And if you stay away long enough, maybe that energy gets redirected to a whole new universe was created, and what happened before didn't.
Yeah. I don't think we understand the capability of shifting timelines because we're really actually doing it all the time. The whole idea of a linear time progression even insinuates that you're at least shifting timeline in a snapshot linear format. Totally. But you know that you have situations where, the simplest one in my mind is like I pull up to a stop sign. I can either turn left or right. And after taking the subsequent rest of the directions, I can end up at the same place. But functionally, I drive down 2 completely different timelines in those ideas. And maybe they actually do take different amounts of time. But both of those timelines are available all the time. So when you make that choice, functionally, you are shifting timelines.
Right. And so that's when you give it awareness. But then once that timeline falls out of existence of awareness, does it ever really? But like at least the collective awareness, then literally old realities disappear and a new world can be here within 5 years. Totally different on every level, governmental, everything. To at least to the people within the realm of your reality.
We get to see that really easy actually in our lifetime now in many ways because of the massive emergence of technology. Kids that are like 8 years old right now, their entire life has gotten on with like everybody has a cell phone. you know.
Mhm.
But to you or I, we're like, we know how to use a cell phone real good and everything, but we definitely remember a time when there wasn't any. You know what I mean? But go
Mm.
like one more generation ahead, the kids that are like even 1 year old right now, but
Mhm.
then definitely beyond that, like it's a
Yeah.
fucking standard for good then. Nobody remembers back then, you know? And
Right.
certain technologies like the pager, like you're
Oh,
gonna
yeah.
talk to somebody about a pager in 1.5 generations from now, and people are gonna have zero clue what
Oh,
you're talking
dude,
about. Like you're
it's
gonna have to
already
go
so
and look
bad.
into
It's
history
already so
books, you
bad.
know what I mean?
My mom posted something recently, and it was like one of the comments on there was something so and so sent off or buzzed off all the pagers or something. I'm like, what the fuck is a? Oh yeah, pagers. Like took a minute. It's like, holy shit,
Like you
man.
even
Yep, it's blown
forgot.
away. Yeah, I was like, I'm not that. I'm
Yeah,
32, man. I've been around. I was around when
yeah.
pagers were there. So
I like this comment right here
yeah,
because Mela says they felt compelled to grab my heart chakra stone during during the break as we talk about sex magic, and really like I think that's the real focus of doing the whole thing right. Is that it's really actually a heart focus. It's not really actually about all of these other things. One of the best thing. Okay, so like we do a lot of human mind is capable of fantasizing quite dramatically, and we have access to all kinds of various different stimulants that we could use when we're masturbating. But one a very fucking good self-love practice is to basically masturbate thinking about yourself or in the mirror just looking at
yeah,
yourself. Like
totally,
if
man.
and in a certain way, like if you don't turn yourself on, there's a reason for that.
Mhm.
There is.
Yeah,
And I'm not
yeah.
saying like, oh, you piece of shit, nothing like that, dude. Like I'm literally saying that this is a good opportunity to
Well,
engage yourself and see in a place where you could really work on your heart and really work on your own perception of yourself. Just it's on a physical dimension. But the expression of that single leaf or single petal of that flower opening on that physical dimension will inevitably cause many others on other dimensions to open up, and you'll really learn about yourself and you really have a better life. So it's a really good practice of looking in the mirror and really being objective with yourself. But when it goes good, then it's literally just like, I really actually like looking at myself. I like what I'm seeing. I actually am in love with myself. I'm going through a process of gratitude of my body parts. Maybe I get to the point where I literally actually do turn myself on. Really weird thing about me, not interested in guys at all, but for some reason my own body turns me on. I find it very interesting,
right.
quite
Yeah.
intriguing to me. Not interested in the penis outside of mine at all. My own, kind of arousing. Pretty
I,
weird.
I I am in that same page exactly, so I can relate.
Yeah. I
But
found that
then,
weird at one point in time.
yeah,
Where like I got
totally.
aroused by my own penis and I was like, wait, do I like penises now? Wait, no.
Right.
No, I don't. No, I don't. You know what I
No
mean? I
doubt.
don't. It's just
Dude,
mine. It's just mine.
I regularly check myself on that because expanding my understanding, right? I want to be open to all
Yeah.
possibilities, and I'm like, I think about a lot of
What if I
dynamics,
woke
and I'm
up on
just
the gay
like,
timeline today?
no, it's like,
I don't know.
I still can't, I haven't found a framework that I'm okay with it yet. It's not within my life path this time, whatever you want to call it. I mean, I still check in regularly. I'm like, okay, have I expanded into a
I
place
check
where
in regularly.
no, I do.
I
It's
stop by
the
the
thing.
gay club consistently. I just don't bring anybody home with me. You know what I'm saying?
No, I do because, and it's funny. It's like, oh, is there some hidden trauma, whatever, like all that shit? I don't think so. I've been through that too. It's just my point is, it's a
Okay.
thing that my ego in some way has some kind of dissonance with being with like some kind of like, oh, it doesn't feel good or something like. Why doesn't it feel? I need to figure out why it doesn't feel good.
Sure.
Just to figure it out doesn't mean I have to do it or don't feel. Oh, we got to do it. It's like no, man. I don't follow anything that's not my value system. I don't do anything. I don't feel its integrity. It's what's right or
Yeah.
good for me. So I know that. So that's fine. So then I'm just trying to figure out the equation, like the old Benoit balls thing.
Yeah. Here goes
Ironically,
Aaron talking about balls again.
dude, that's gonna be a thing, man. Because I
11,
use them all the
11.
time. Yes, it is. On the West Coast.
I'd like to thank you all for being here. 1111 is very much so a number of pairing and coherence for me, and thank you for pairing and cohering with me in this reality. I see Willa say wonderful things like this, that she can't imagine her life without connecting with lovely people like the ones in this chat,
Oh,
and I really, really appreciate that there's a space that you can do that and that you're connecting with us, and that you find the same things interesting. That's super cool. Thank you all for being a part of this community. And that's my little random 11:11 prayer. So now it's 12:12 for Kala. So
Wow.
we're doing the same prayer in a different moment in a certain.
Yeah. Well, and yeah. So, well, Willow, just say, Willow, you are just a fantastically wonderful creature. Whatever you are behind that avatar, you're awesome. I mean, just like there's just an energy and a flow to all of your comments and expressions that are really awesome. I just appreciate your expression and the way you are and all the stuff that you say, and yeah, you're cool.
Yeah,
In
you're
short.
cool. She's
That's what
talking
I
about
mean.
them VHS tapes and dial-up internet too. Like people already don't know the struggle, man. You know,
No
your
doubt.
mom always picking up the phone while you're in the middle of a game or whatever. It disconnects you.
Do you still own any VHS or tapes?
No, I don't
Oh
think
no,
so.
because you kind of
I have
like
some.
came
I
down
have a bunch of
150.
stuff in it. I have a bunch of stuff in a storage shed in
Oh
Leavenworth, and
yeah.
if I'm completely honest, I don't know what like half of it is. So there might be a
So
couple
maybe.
VHS tapes in there. I
Yeah.
don't know.
Like an N64, you got the Super Nintendo in there, NES. You got an NES in
Never
there?
know, dude. Might
Yeah.
maybe it's like a little treasure trove. I have
No
no
doubt,
idea.
man.
That's what it is. Like what I decided, I put stuff in there and I just pay for it without looking at it until I couldn't remember what it was, and then it was like opening up a big Christmas present.
Yeah. Yeah. True,
No,
man.
actually, I'm
So it
wasting a
goes.
bunch of money keeping a bunch of shit in a storage shed for no fucking reason. I don't even know what it is. I literally don't even know what it is, and I pay for it every month. Like, what is that all about?
No, attachment. Something's unresolved. Resolve some karma, bro.
A couple of things in there are worthwhile, but definitely is not like, worthy of a 10 by 10, I don't think. I do have a good deal on it, though. The topic of NPCs is how I got introduced to the consciousness community.
Oh, so
I know
Will,
that, like, people who have been on this channel have, I think, pretty, like, very much so beliefs with that. I have differing beliefs to them.
yeah, it's more so I think the Geos talk about that in Beyond the Veil. That's where the concept comes from, which is a great
They
archetype.
definitely
Like I
do.
like that. I like the framework. I mean, it works in a lot of levels. It can get a little sticky if you adhere to it too immorally, but that's to each their own. I mean, you can't apply a paradigm to a way that's imbalanced inside of you. You take it for what works with it, and then you let the other stuff go.
Yeah. I feel like it's just like it's a weird like okay, so the whole like AI Matrix thing, it's been okay. Spirituality's had a lot of stories that emerged in it, and the whole AI Matrix kind of foundation, that's all kind of like the same thing. And I feel like
Yeah.
in a certain way, it's like NPC is like the emergent derogatory term inside of that little like
Absolutely.
psychological sphere.
Totally.
So it's just like,
Some
oh, you're
realms,
not,
yeah.
you're a fucking NPC. You know what I mean? Like I've played a
Yeah.
lot of video games. You definitely don't want to be an NPC, man.
Right.
Like that's not what you want to
No
be in your
doubt.
life. So that is like the NPCs are the dumbest shit. You know what I mean? Like they walk off and they go fight shit that they shouldn't even fight. They fucking like they're like, hey, follow me over here, and then they walk really slow when your character normally runs really fast.
Yeah.
So you just have to like run and then wait, and then if you get too far ahead, they disappear. Right? Like
Yeah.
it's just really
Well,
like it's like this weird derogatory term.
Well, I think what's
So
funny, when I
interesting.
heard that too, and I've seen it used that way at times, and that's what I'm not okay with at all. Like when it's used that way, it's just
I'm not gonna lie. The first time that I ever heard it, I thought this, and I thought of N-word player character.
Really interesting.
Yeah, I was like, that's a derogatory. It's a player character, right? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Because it was just derogatory to me, right? Right away.
I agree with Willow. I think NPC is a useful term, but I don't think it's the most accurate one. So I think, and I totally agree. So like, I do like it in the ways like So, and to be fair, like I've heard Chris talk about different times too. So like the guy about the bartender, the bartender, what it should be.
Nina said it should be AFK. I really actually kind of agree with that because like NPC insinuates that they have no control and AFK just means that they aren't at the controls.
Yeah, no doubt. Way better. Dude, way better.
Yeah, exactly. Like you're saying, they have the tools, they're just not using it. I agree. Like they should be AFKs. We got a lot of AFKs out there on the world, okay? Like there's a lot of workstations and a lot of dudes are standing at the coffee machine and stuff like that. They're good people.
So listen, yeah, that's what I'm saying. So that's what Chris does. I feel like the way he does express it at times, he does talk about the bartender in the game, or the guy at the tool shop. They're just it's like whatever, when they're there, they're just doing their role in life. It's not good or bad
Yeah.
people. They're just doing their program, like whatever, that's their
Yeah.
life path. It's fine.
Yeah.
They'll
Yeah.
probably never ever care about metaphysical shit, or maybe whatever, but like that's fine.
Yeah,
So,
when the
like,
first interaction that you have with someone is, welcome to Del Taco, what can I make fresh for you today? That's a non-player character, right? Like, I get that.
Yeah,
I totally get it.
at the same
It's the
time, I don't
vendor.
know. Yeah, I don't know. At the same time, there's some people that are like really starting to wake up. Like I've seen people check out, so I'm like, oh, you're close, you're right there. And some people are. It's just the life situation they're in at the moment. It's just interesting. But yeah, AFK is way better. So the Gnostic paradigm, something that you have to earn your soul, coming into balance and dealing with your shit, and like, well, in short, the beautiful teachings I've listened hours to on, but that you have to earn your soul, is my understanding, to bring it in. Like you have to create space for it by our choice here. That's the nervous system and like overcoming those issues, like all that shit.
Sure.
What do you think about that?
I mean, I very much so think that our entire thing is a constant process of integration, and the more that we integrate, the more that we know. So, like, on really like all levels.
Yeah.
A person can be disintegrated from things on any level.
Totally.
But it's still just at a very, at a broad, vague level.
Okay.
Life itself is about integrating experiences.
Speaking of, how many people have you run into in life? And for me, this spans even the Christian paradigm, but just in life where they're amazing on many, many levels that they're aware of, right?
Mm-hmm.
But they're pretty shit human beings, man. Like they just don't have their shit together, or they're shady, or they're whatever. It's like, man, you got so much going for you and you know it, but you're just kind of a shit person.
True. I know a lot of people that like they're very, very high. Well, I have known a lot of people. I actually don't know them now, to be honest. But a lot of high functioning people that basically you could say that they use their powers for bad is the way that I would really go with it. And they just like they know what they are, and they know what they're capable of doing, and as a byproduct of that, they're just kind of like, they're always just smashing ahead, right?
Yeah.
Like they don't. If someone else gets in their way, they're get the fuck out of here. They're getting their shit done, and they know that it's really all about them getting their shit done, and these other things like, I don't really have to be nice to them or anything. It's like, and at the end of the day, I don't disagree with them. It is a choice of being nice to other people. You don't have to be nice to other people.
Right.
It makes for a more pleasant earth and environment around you and things like that. Sure, but you don't have to. I mean.
Dude, it's funny when some people are assholes to me. Dude, it makes me laugh so hard. Like when people lose their shit in traffic. Like I tell you, I cut them off a little bit or something, or even if I didn't, right? But they feel like I did, and they come over and they're just blah, 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 blah.
Yeah.
Like a lot of times I'll start laughing, or I'll have this big smile on my face because like it's so funny to me when people just lose their shit.
Yeah. I do find that pretty funny as well. Mellow saying there's an unfortunate amount of those people. I would agree in a certain way. Like because of my own perspectives, I believe that people should be nice and use their powers for good, right? Like that's just the side that I fight on. I think one person on the planet that does that is an unfortunate amount. So I would completely agree. But I also, believe in free will and balances, and everybody can do what they want, and it's a thing.
Mm-hmm.
To them, oftentimes also on the flip side, like that might be the life that they actually want. That might be the way that they want reality to be. That might be their heaven, for lack of a better word. And they're here sculpting their heaven. And you don't agree with their heaven, but does that make it any less valuable than what you would agree with? I mean, like technically not, unless you consider yourself the delineator of value of heavens or something, which seems like a really, really presumptuous title.
Right.
So,
okay. So have you ever experienced road rage like that? Like not to you, but in your life. Has that ever been something you struggled with or whatever? Like you'd flip your shit, like you just couldn't help it, you just did?
I used to like flipping my shit. Like you like people flipping their shit. I like flipping my shit, and also people flipping their shit. But I enjoyed it. Like When I was younger, especially, I don't know. I just looked for opportunities to be fucking mouthy and shit because I thought it was funny.
Yeah.
Really simple as that. Yeah.
No, yeah. But like, so you don't do that anymore?
Not in the same way. Like, I guess you would say that I do it. I'm an ethical troll nowadays.
What a great way to say it. Totally, man. Keep going. Keep going.
I like the joke. Matter of fact, I forgot to bring up. You got me today. I didn't tell you to this inside
What?
of the thing. When I went to put my shit in the security deposit box, I literally was not thinking about it at all, and you fucking popped out of it, and I was like, "Fucker got me."
I popped out of the security box?
Yeah, because you had programmed it into my fucking mind in that last meditation. You were like, "Oh, I jumped out of the box." You know, like I put myself in the box
Right.
so I could jump out of the box, and I laughed
Right.
about it, and then I never thought about it again. And then the next time I went to use my box, I opened it up, and you jumped out. Like I could literally like see your face. Like I was like, "What the fuck? Oh, it got me."
Dude, it's so funny. Okay, so I don't know, are we at this level of depth of conversational interaction on personal things? Probably. We'll try it out. So one of the meditation we were doing, or I don't know if it was, it was one of the shows. It was the one. It's funny because so much time passes in between. It's almost like sometimes it's like too soon, right? But then it's like, it could be 8 weeks. Well, it's been 8 shows. That's pretty much 8 weeks. The way time's going and like just all the conversation we're
By
having, the
some people's
interaction.
podcasts, we would be like way deep now.
Way. So anyway, so when you're having that's what it is now. Now we can talk about it. It makes way more sense in certain ways. When you were hitting the front end of the slug, right?
Yeah, it makes way more fucking sense. Yeah, let's go.
Okay, now it's cool. All right.
You hitting the front end of the slug. We're
So
speaking in code right now, basically.
So his tentacles.
Oh my god.
His tentacles reached out and just started fucking with your energy, man. Right?
Sure. Yeah. Yeah.
So me and Angela carried that podcast for the most part, and like was great. And created its own beautiful thing. But during that time, I remember very consciously at moments like just holding multiple threads. Well, I'm always doing this, and I put in my algorithms, like bring into conscious awareness and adding that extra focus to going through the coherent meditation with you, and then different ways of like I was interacting with you, and I remember trying not to laugh at different times during the podcast because I was trying to play with you so hard because you were meditating so hard. I was like, play with me, come on, and not even just like come back to the show, like energetically, or whatever. So it's interesting. You said it popped out in the box too.
Yeah, you got me.
Cool.
It's funny too because it didn't really like break my focus or anything. Like it was just funny. Like it literally, like I was kind of like
frame.
Well, because I had done this thing with April earlier, and I was very much so like integrating a lot of stuff, and then I had gone and got food, and I was listening to an old song that I'm really appreciative of. Maybe I'll play it on the way out of this show. It's called Halcyon and On by Orbital, and it was a very, very popular song back in the day. And maybe I can find the exact same video. I don't know, it was on the phone. But it had all these like aerial shots of stuff of the earth and like stuff like that. And like, I don't know, I just like had a moment like falling in love with earth and being human and being alive and shit like that.
Fuck yeah.
But like, I like cried a lot and shit, and it was like it was overwhelming to me. And plus, I had the healing stuff earlier engaged with. I mean, like, well, if you go by my intuition's belief, it was a soul retrieval of 10,322 soul fragments in like an hour and a half. But it's just by what intuitively came out, because one of the experiences was heavily fragmenting as a byproduct of excessive amounts of LSD. Nevertheless, so I was just like kind of like overwhelmed, you know what I mean? Like I was energetically, I had been through a lot or whatever, but it really like actually kind of like revitalized me in a certain way. Like when I like laughed about it from happening, it really it changed the whole like demeanor of what was going on, like going into the meditation basically. So it was good. I need something like that. I actually kind of realized from it, like you should put something like that inside of there anyways, but it's hard for like me to put something like that. It's not surprising or anything, you know what I mean?
Uh-huh.
So I don't know. It's cool though.
Yeah.
Yeah, pretty weird. Let's see. We've been on
Pretty
here for a
awesome.
while, and I just talked about this Halcyon non track. I should probably get some sleep. I'm gonna find this track real
Okay.
quick. I was gonna also like talk about I never showed any pictures. I'll get pictures on everything of these people that I'm talking about. For right now,
Oh yeah, yeah.
I will show a picture just because I really like this. I really like this picture of. I think it's still on my website. If it's not, I have to find it then, and then maybe I won't do it right now. Oh yeah, it's right here. It's loading. So yeah. How did I build this website again? Okay, that's right. It's the background image, which kind of sucks, but we'll go with it. It cuts off a little bit. But this is me and Dio, and what was definitely a very good moment. Like we had taken like a couple photos before this, but like eventually, like I was just screwing with him and shit, and like this is like a really genuine. Like I was so happy in this moment, you know, because I was like making this dude laugh right here, the guy on the right, and then this is like this is his sister-in-law over here, Rosinda. Craziest thing, when these people walked onto the property, like I saw them from probably like I don't know 1,000 feet away. And like immediately I got this overwhelming like mom and dad energy. It was so crazy because it was like I could feel their energy. Like I honestly like if you ask Jen, she'll say the same thing. You could feel these guys when they walked onto the property, like you would know. And like when this property that we were on, you still went like a mile from the gate to get to where we actually were like on the property. But you would know like when they got on the property. It was really, really crazy. But
awesome.
They're fucking really good people and have helped. I mean, literally just fucking countless. I mean, this Dio's like in his 60s now, and he's literally been doing it his entire life. The first time he ever did ayahuasca, he was like 9 years old. Like when he did like real shamanic journey ayahuasca. Realize he comes from a culture that raises up their children by putting ayahuasca on the nipple of the women that breastfeed them. So like, you know, he's been in it. He's helped a lot of people. He's an incredible singer. He's an incredible curandero, like, and a really good person. Really, like, takes care of his tribe. He still holds that tribal format of the shaman that was really the leader of the tribe. There's no king. There's a mediator that makes sure that everybody's taken care of and that shit is dispatched properly and that everybody gets enough. But like, you know, really, actually, a very truly good leader and just good guy all around. So let's all work together to help him out because he's a fantastic individual and has already helped us do a lot of what our job is. Like really, like if you're trying to help the world, these are people who very, very much so help the world in their way. And I mean, if you have problems,
where can they donate? Where can they donate, Zach?
For right now, because I haven't built stuff, if you feel compelled to donate right now, you can donate to the link below. We don't have really anything but donations from the show going there. And we're going to put those donations towards these guys until that ends, until they have the food that they need right now. So there's a donation link in the description. You can use that if you want to donate. And I know I didn't present a huge case right now. You're going to hear more about this, you know, to a whole tribe, literally, like a section of a tribe, but functioning their own village of real people, real mouths that really need food, really need help, and are really doing something good to help the world. And it's going 100% directly to them. So I love all of you.
And Jensen's one of the last 7 indigenous tribes in the Amazon.
True. Also true. One of the last 7 indigenous tribes in Amazon. And they are, I mean, these are, if you have any appreciation for ayahuasca culture whatsoever, realistically plant medicines, know that the Shipibo people have developed a good amount of the knowledge of what we know about that, and they are the tribe that traces back to the developers of ayahuasca. They like these guys are very real deal. I walked through the jungle with this guy, and he literally gave me like a 25-minute explanation of what every plant was, what its story was, what it had to say, what it was like. I mean, like this guy lives the earth. If you care about Mother Earth, you care about Dio DeMero. We're going to play a song that has a video that's very pretty about the earth. And hopefully, maybe inside yourself, you will fall in love with the earth again, just like I did when I watched this show. or this song and video earlier today, because one of the best things that you can do for yourself is fall in love with your physical life. We talk about a lot of big brain motherfucking concepts on this show. We talking about some Anunnaki and all this crazy stuff. Love your motherfucking self, and right where you are a good person. You need to care about your body. You need to care about your experience here, the people around you. You need to express love with them. You can explore the big brain concepts all day long and blow yourself out on drugs. That's great. Bring something back here. Be a good person. Learn how to love yourself. If you get to a point where you love yourself as much as I love you, you will have done a very good job and you will have a very beautiful life. I love you very much. Here's a song that we are playing out. I hope you have a great evening. And where do we share the screen? We do it over here. It goes like this. We make sure we share the audio. And here we are, the earth, where we live and you live and we all love. And those words are very etymologically bound. I care about all of you. Have a good night.